Mission is not the end. It is the beginning. From struggle to status, from behind the bridge to the world, from rhythm to reverence. The Steel Pan is not just music. It is memory. It is meaning. The Steel Pan sings louder than ever. It sings in the hands of our children, in the heart of East Port of Spain, across Europe, Asia, and the Americas. This was never just a local sound. It was a global gift, waiting.
It's our national instrument, and we should be proud of it and try to support it as best as we can.
Anywhere steel pan play around the world, Trinidad name will be mentioned as the first country to have this oil drum play sweet music.
Today, we honor that legacy. We salute the thousands who made it possible.
Attending over 10 years.
I've been coming to Panorama for only 2 years.
What I love most about Panorama in Trinidad is just the expressions of all the different music, all the different compositions, all the different arrangements. Two bands can play the same song and it will sound completely different.
The love of steel pan and seeing everybody enjoy themselves and hearing the different arrangers come up with something that makes sense musically to bring the crowd coming again and again.
The culture and how each band express the different type of music, that is what brings me here every year.
What I love about Carnival is that it's very diverse. A lot of persons come out in costumes, even if they're having a downtime. That's the time for them to come out and, show up and show out, enjoy themselves, and just have a time.
Very nice program.
Right, so tonight we are taking you to the winners. So this is the Carnival Insider. We are here, San Fernando, Skinner's Bar. Get ready. Small conventional bands. The winners, listen with me.
All right, you going to collect?
Well, Michelle is a Carnival Insider, and I will join Michelle. Happy Carnival to everyone. Carnival Insider.
Good evening, good evening. I want to welcome everyone back to Yellow School program. I have with me here Mr. Suman Singh and Mr. Vetsi Ram is with us. Also, he'll be joining us. And the other guys will be joining us pretty soon. So I want to welcome you back to the program. And Mr. Siriam, you hearing us? I'm not sure. Anyway, Mr. Suman Singh, if you would like to welcome you back to the program, and I mean it's the carnival season is in full swing in Trinidad and Tobago, and you see everyone is fully engaged there, and our Prime Minister, who they claim to be missing in action, is fully engaged with the public on the ground. So I don't know how they can claim that she's missing in action, as we've seen there, and so I'd like to hear your comments.
Yeah, right, Gary. Good night. Good night to all our listeners, and welcome to 2026, the new year. I don't think this is our first program subsequently, so we look forward to having you on board, that is, the listeners. Well, Gary, I'm sure the Prime Minister was not kidnapped and taken to the US as they claimed she was out missing in action, but here we've seen her at the Carnival Village in Port of Spain having a good time with the other MP from Moruga, Tabland, Michelle Benjamin. So all the naysayers and those commentators and what have you, who is asking for the Prime Minister, where is she? They're not seeing her. I hope they saw her there at Carnival, and so they will all shut up and listen to what she's saying. It is all a PR stunt. The PNM, as you know, they don't have no issues to speak about except the follies of the radar. And why don't we hear them coming out and say that crime? There were 254 murders less in 2025 than in 2024. Why don't they say something like that to show that they are truly nationalistic? But the question, will it shut down the radar if we come back in power? It does nothing to benefit the country. And here's it, we see 2 multi-million drug busts in less than a month because the radio was able to pick up them. 271 million in one bust and over 100 and something million in the other bust. So it's all, selective. That is the PNM. Very selective on their reporting, and they're asking questions because they have literally nothing to comment about. The UNC has been able to beat them hands down in all segments of deliverables. Example, check for last year alone. In the 6 or 7 or 8 months they have been in office, they presented a budget. 1, Tobago got its biggest ever allocation. 2, they were able to bring down crime by a substantial amount, 42%, which translates into 254 less murders in 2025 as compared to 2024. It has delivered on the laptop project to secondary school students, first form students. And mind you, those laptops are AI enabled, which means the students have the latest computers which they can access teaching help from the AI buttons, or the bot as they call them. So there is no shortage of learning material. In addition, we saw another deliverable in the form of the health sector. All CDAP drug formularies and so on, better medication, newer medication for most chronic diseases. And the minister assured the public that he was going to do that in their manifesto, and they did. So there are several other deliverables coming on stream, not to mention the corrupt practices of the PNM were exposed with over $100 million in drugs that were outdated. Another deliverable on the health sector was the opening of the Cooper Children's Hospital.
So man, if you can look at the screen there for a second.
Yeah.
The state paid 16 million in negligence settlements under the PNM from 2015. I think I'll have to look back at the article here. Let me just see here.
Medical malpractice, which is negligence in the medical field. But they have several outstanding cases yet to be, terminated. So we don't know which way that will go. So you're looking at several $1 million more of potential liabilities. So this has accrued over, I guess, a period of time. Yeah, state paid over 16 million in
2015 to 2024. I just wanted to recheck the date here.
9 years. 9 years.
All right.
So
Now let me see here. Let's see here. A 2022 Guardian Media investigation revealed that between 2015 and 2021, more than 37 million of taxpayers' money was spent on legal fees by the RHA to defend claims filed by victims of medical negligence.
So,
right? So the PNM, who has no morality to speak, is it could find everything to condemn the UNC government. Look how many ways that the PNM costs us money. Right, with negligence, and I mean, you name it, they can't account for what they're doing. The job is poorly done. Citizens are not treated well by the government services. I mean, there's so much things that, I mean, the long list of things I will, it will take a long time to name here. But and these people are so blatantly bold-faced, and all of a sudden, Penny found a voice to speak against Mrs. Bisesa and the government. But when Rowley was doing all the things that he was doing, she had no voice.
Well, as I always say, they had Pip in their mouth at that time.
Mhm.
And, it's what is the headline? 16 million, but whatever you have to add it to the 7 million legal fees for that. To really see that the liability is really $53 million as of 2021. And what has happened is that the legal fees has far surpassed the actual payment of $16 million.
Yeah, I
So
will
what
pick
does
this
it?
back up with Dr. Rambo when he comes in on Vade also, as soon as they join. We want to reiterate these things so they bring this to their
Yes.
attention.
So as
Yeah,
I
Samantha and Gary, I'm here. I've joined, but I not hearing you on speaker, so I have it by my ear. So I heard everything that you all said. So I'll
great,
contribute this way.
great to have you on board, Wade. We missed you for a while there.
Oh gosh,
We know you were enjoying yourself in the cold, but that's okay. That's okay.
yeah, I was frozen in the cold. Well, the
Yeah,
first day
And
you
I think he
go
visits one of the coldest areas in the United States there.
yeah.
in Canada, yeah,
When Alberta, Edmonton,
Edmonton, yeah.
Edmonton. Yeah. Well, I've been there in September. And it always was snowing up in Banff. So
Yeah,
I could imagine at this time of the year, all the glaciers and everything is frozen for a while.
Saman, the cold is one thing, but
Yeah,
it's
the breeze.
the breeze, and you immediately you catch a cold and
Yeah,
flu and
yeah.
everything.
And
And
when you come back, the same thing
yeah,
happens in Trinidad. As soon as you land, you get that hot air.
well, cross
Yeah.
fingers, nothing so far.
All right. Nice to hear. Nice to hear. And welcome back, Wade. As I
Yeah,
said,
thank you,
we
thank
miss
you.
your insightful comments and different angle of
Yes,
presentation.
yes.
You are the more matured ones who speak in a slight, different
Yeah,
tone. We are more aggressive,
yeah, thank you.
I
Well,
guess our passion is more in tune with the
you
local setting. So really
you
rip
know what?
things apart.
Well, Sumant, we've passed through so much, yourself and myself. I'm not talking
Yes.
about Gary. Gary also, but he hasn't. He's not over his 70s, 76 in my case, and in your case, 70 something as well.
Yeah,
You know,
just touching empty.
touching's empty. So when you're in the departure lounge and you should have nothing to fear, you know.
That's right. You don't
At
care
that
about the
stage,
flight.
if you
You don't.
can't speak your mind at
Yes.
that stage, then something is wrong.
Yeah, we don't care about the flight anymore. It could go
No.
anywhere.
Anyway.
So
All
listen
right.
to Dr. Gopi Singh here for 1 minute.
We met at a hospital, Eric Williams, that had one transformer. And if that transformer blew, the entire complex would have gone black. And patients in the intensive care unit and in the operating theaters, their lives would have been compromised. There was a transformer that cost $6.6 million that was sitting for 2 years. And absolutely nothing was done about it. We implemented and put the transformer in over a weekend, where we had to redirect some of the electricity services. 3 standby generators were not functional. We made sure that they were done. A chiller. There are 3 chillers that supply the Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex with cooling. All 3 chillers were down. One chiller costing about $10 million was bought about 9 years ago, sitting and getting rusty and never used. So we're now in the process of getting that chiller done. The wastewater system was not being treated, and raw sewage was going into the mainstream of the water system for years. There were 9 pumps that we repaired immediately, and we sorted that problem. The freshwater system in the hospitals had no filtration. We put in filtration systems and we got that going. The fire hydrants are there. The 9 pumps that supply the fire hydrants, none was functional. We in fact now dealing with that matter. Lights around the car parks and the system, 170 lights were repaired and brought back into reality. Hundreds of blown bulbs and so on.
Okay, guys, you can comment on that. Go ahead.
Gary, you know, where is the press in all of these things, boy, to highlight? And where is the UNC communications and PR team to highlight all these misgivings and what has been done so far in trying to remedy this situation?
But that was part of the press conference, you know, for
Yeah,
the
but
UNC there.
we don't have to wait for a press conference, guy. Where is the former minister of health? Why is he brought to be and press interview him and say, hey, how come 100 odd lights were not lighting and the 3 chillers that were bought before, one case 9 years old and has not been, mounted up? Where is it standby generators and so on? Why are they non-functional? But they had one of the highest paid CEOs there, a guy by the name of Davlin Thomas. He was the CEO of that region. Yet, I guess he was just collecting salaries and not accounting for no deliverables. Why they had so many problems there?
So when the ordinary man on the street from the PNM side goes and ball down the place, right? Where was their voice when all these things were happening? Now that you're seeing the facts hitting you in the face, of the level of squandermania and unaccountability that took place under the PNM. Ved, you jump in anytime you're ready.
Yeah, but let me make a point. Sumant is right. You can't just look at let's say a news conference because it doesn't reach the general public. What I would suggest, all what the minister said appears to me to be criminal negligence, because there may have been death as a result of these non-functional equipment, and we have to investigate it. So first of all, investigate it, and then bring criminal negligence charges. If that happens, and of course you'll be guided by legal attorney advice and so on. But if that happens, you can't take it out of the media then. It's in the media.
And in addition, Ved, all those years, the 9 years or so, there were various boards appointed at that, North Central RHA.
Bring
So,
all of them to account, Suman. Bring all of them to account.
exactly, because it has precedent and the sport TT under
Yes.
Arnold Roberts. That board was incriminated. They were charged, and all members of that board had to pay certain sums of money. So the precedent
Exactly.
has been established.
Exactly.
So
So that is
all these
negligence.
boards, gross negligence, and not one board over the 9 years, I'm sure, or 9.5, there would have been 3 iterations of these boards.
Yes.
If they change them every 3 years, that is. If they change
see-
them every 2 years, it would have been 4 boards change hands. That's pretty close to 40 people.
You
40
see,
people.
so, Gary, it's not a question of being vindictive, but I think you have agreed with us earlier on that these things must be investigated, and the cause of it, or non-performance of the board and the CEO, etc., and so on, they must account for it, because they just move from this position to another high position within they're hopping from peak to peak, one way or the
To
next,
be
whether
correct.
whether government
Correct.
change or not. It's the same incompetence that dominates governance in Trinidad, and that has to stop.
And this new board has only come on stream, I can tell you, in September of this year.
Right.
September. Yeah, I know when they nominated the board in September. And so in 5 months' time, look at the amount of work, one, that was done, but
Exactly.
more notably is the amount of negligent issues which was rectified. So people have to be held accountable for their misgivings. I know 2 ways about that. I don't care who it is or what party they belong to. You see, performance, you have been paid on performance, and you have guys there 8 and 10 and years who are just sitting by every month collecting salary, and there is no improvement in the health service under the PNF. None whatsoever.
No, it deteriorated. What the minister said, what I got from it, is that there was no governance over the last 10 years. Everything was you buy things and you just abandon it.
Yes, and that is a flagship hospital that serves, a lot of people. I mean, walk through people and so on, chronic disease, heart problems, kidney failure. Basically, the core hospital setting is Mount Hope. Any issues that cannot be handled in any of the other hospitals, they send you there.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's like our flagship. And if that is what has been happening to our flagship hospital, can we imagine what has been happening in the other hospitals, which has not been reporting any issues to date?
But so this reminds me of Gaza, your car shut down, it can't work, and you're tied to a donkey and you're pulling it all over the place.
Well, this is reminiscent of PNM style of governance.
No,
you can
man.
get away with anything, and there's no accountability, no transparency. You don't see the press highlighting these issues and so on. But they will quickly highlight Prime Minister is missing in action. That's a headline. But things that really affect people's lives, like the healthcare system, nothing is reported on these issues. Example, even like the deaths, all the deaths during COVID are classified as COVID deaths, regardless of whether you got a heart attack or you die from diabetic complications or what have you. You have been classified as COVID, as a COVID death, so the government could, get international funding.
They get a pass, They get a pass.
No, they get funding, actual cash dollars for each country. The amount of deaths you can, show that you had in your country, you get allocated certain sums of money.
But Suman, my son, he gathered data on all of that, and we were number 1 per capita, Trinidad, and he had a ceremony, and he made some plaques, and he planted 4,000 plus ribbons to show. But you know, they're not recognized by the government, but they are
No, no.
individuals who did a lot of work on it. A
Yes,
lot of work.
yes.
Right now, there's a case. He's fighting a case on behalf of somebody who died for the family and so on. That matter is going to court or is gone to court already. So these are the things, you know, that ought to be highlighted and hold the government accountable for it and take it out of, take the money out of their own pocket. They can't just take tax.
No, that I've been preaching that faith from day one. All these
Yes.
people who have been comfortable in their position over the past years, they should not be getting any pension and gratuity unless it can be proven that they did no wrong. Because this is a wrong, by not having your lighting system, your water and sewer disposal, your backup generators, your chillers, and so on. These are what you call the back end of any operation.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. That is equivalent to working your way to be fired. Now, if you're fired, I think it affects your pension and so on.
Yes. So who were the persons, you know, in these authorities who were signing off on the individual performance for any given year? Because you know, your appraisal, performance appraisal is done by a senior officer, and he has to confirm that, hey, Mr. So-and-so, he was a good employee, he was always here on time, went beyond the call of duty, he did this. He actually stuck to his job specifications and did what he was supposed to do, and even more. So in that case, I gave him a good recommendation. Whereas, okay, you are the CEO, but wait now, you're in charge of this operations here at this institution, and 3 of your chillers, in fact, the 3 chillers we own, none of us are operational. What about the water and waste disposal system? That was a problem as well. So you cannot be getting the same recommendation of your performance appraisal should be literally nil or in negative. And once it is in negative, basically section 5, if you ever look at it, is most unsatisfactory, starting from 1 to 5. It's graded from 1 to 5. So, and yet these guys, who was doing this appraisal, performance appraisal for all these guys who were there? Who was evaluating the directors, the board of directors, and so on? You know, so all these things I keep on saying over and over and over. The P&M deliberately broke all the systems in the various institutions, ministries, and state-run corporations so that they can carry on their dirty work and pilfer from the national treasury. So there will be no accountability, no paper trail in some cases. You cannot hold nobody accountable. In other words, they bluntly stole monies from the people, and they should be punished, in my view. Yes, Gary?
Yeah, I'm listening to you guys. It's something, I mean, that we cannot let go just like that. I mean, there has been too much damage, financially, emotionally, all forms that this government has caused upon the people. And so when people get ready to jump up and ray behind them, you have to bring these things forward. Is this what you're supporting? Are you supporting your own demise? Are you supporting your own destruction? Or are you looking for a better for yourself and your family? Is this what you're going to support? Because it's kind of like unbelievable to see some people still running behind the P&M trying to defend these things that they done.
So you can imagine if
how stupid can you be? How stupid can you be?
Right. Well, they kept their supporters only on a leash. They only achieve up to a certain level. But let's go a bit further. You have $53 million in liabilities, $37 million in but your life or but your bottom dollar. These are the legal team or legal teams, friends and family of the PNA. Right? Legal fees only. Your current liability is 16 million for persons who have been
And
injured.
37 million in illegal fees.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. 37 and 16.
How you like that?
For friends and family. I would have loved to be a lawyer in the wrong profession, my friend.
But
Yeah,
Suman,
but
you let me ask a question.
Sure.
Wouldn't we have insurance? Wouldn't the government have some sort of liability insurance or something?
There have been some regulations recently I saw to avoid malpractice, medical malpractice insurance, it's called. That has only been recently instituted, but these things have been going on since 2015. And this report is up to 2021. So I guess it's not covered by, and if you got Stephen on the line, we'll tell you how many cases are already pending. They have hundreds of cases pending. So one wonders how much more the government will be liable for, going forward. Because if a lot of these COVID cases, and this is the scary part, if the president have been said that everybody gets a 500,000 who has been found negligent, or the government is negligent at 500,000 apiece, it could be hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars the government have to pay out, both in legal fees and to the individuals who have been hurt themselves. So it's a delayed. The PNM delayed everything. They knew that problem was there. They never paid out anything much except legal fees, again, to their friends and family. So what has been going on? Again, it comes back to the same thing. Where is the communication, PR thing? Where is the press? You don't hear these things. We only hear these things after, as I said, de facto, after the fact.
Well, you're asking where the press, but I could account for Newsday.
Yeah, but they survived well beyond their life expectancy. Sorry to say that, but their level of usefulness has long waned. Anyway, but where was the press in all these years to highlight the misgivings of the previous regime? But they're very astute and to ask, the PM is missing in action. Why doesn't she come on the television and so on and address the population on the radar issues, blah, 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 all the things, making the headlines. She has already said what she has to say. That's it. Right? We are sovereign.
Was that a headline?
Which one?
Was that a headline?
Which one? What pertaining to what?
That the PM is missing in action.
Yeah. That was a headline.
Penny herself was out there, was a big thing out there.
And she said the PM has to account to the people.
Dr. Maraj just joined us here. Welcome, Dr. Maraj.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, Doc.
Doc, they said the Prime Minister was missing, according to the PNM. Yeah, the Prime Minister was missing in action. So, but we just showed them. We just showed them the Prime Minister a while ago. I'm gonna see if I can find back. But go ahead, guys. Let me find that clip.
Yeah. In the meantime, the PNM Prime Minister said exactly what she had to say. We are a sovereign nation. This war is between Venezuela and the U.S. We have nothing to do with it. We stand by the people. Both territories. And she made herself clear. She also made herself clear with respect to the radar in Tobago, and another one to be planted in Trinidad. and she's already seen the benefits and shown the benefits of the radar. As I said, 2 big drug busts alone, almost $500 million in the space of 3 months. You add that to the amount of lives saved between the SOE, state of emergency, and so on, and you begin to see tangible benefits accruing to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So the Prime Minister is speaking. She has already spoken. So what is this headline about? PM missing in action.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes, we're hearing.
Can you all hear me? Yeah, I'm having an audio problem. Anyway,
Okay,
I think a good answer to that, is to say a great deal of work is being done through silence. And leave it like that.
Maybe you sign out and sign back in because you joined somehow. You're
All right.
appearing twice.
Let me do that. I'll do that.
So go ahead, Dr. Maharaj, in the meantime.
Oh no, I'm trying to say what you're talking about missing in action. I thought the Prime Minister is missing. If the Prime Minister is missing, that's a serious thing. If the Prime Minister is in action, that's why she have ministers. You're not supposed to be in front all the time. I told her to like I told you all, I did write her and tell her to make some kind of a bully pulpit kind of thing. We talked about this here already, and I told her.
Yeah, the bullhorn every 2 weeks.
Yeah, the bullhorn, the bullhorn. So apparently she maybe doesn't want to do that, but she's pushing the ministers in front. So I guess she making it like today had some ministers appearing. She must have been she must have been saying, you know what?
Well,
the amount of things that are happening. She
welcome,
cannot.
Dr. Ramrup.
Hi guys, what's up?
Hello. Yeah, she must have been pushing the ministers in front. Let them answer. Let them, because they're more in detail of what we see.
But if you notice, our Prime Minister, she shares turf. She don't hold turf to herself. She always, she always distribute and give people opportunity. It has always been her way of giving people opportunity to build themselves.
No, see, I separated to have a press conference, which is a give and take, which is somebody coming with a hidden agenda, which is what they usually do. Or you take the damn bully pulpit on 8 o'clock, 9, whatever, 7 o'clock, take all the stations, all the TV stations, everything, line them up, and you make your announcements and walk away. No questions. So you can say I'm missing in action and make a big so because if she gets into this Q&A thing, she cannot answer, or she had to push the ministers in front. But there's a lot of things, 29 ministries. How could you answer as a Prime Minister? Not yet, maybe later on. So she's pushing all those ministers because I don't see why she couldn't go to the areas and lay the gauntlet down. That is why she have a bully pulpit. We talked about, that's the exact words I used to her, bully pulpit. So maybe she will at some point. Apparently, I see she sent out 2 ministers today. Today is Sunday morning at 11 o'clock. That means she's pushing them out, and she's preferred the press conference. But the press conferences, today went pretty. I don't know what you all think about. Today the guys and them went pretty good. I have issues with what they're saying, but that's not my business. It's my business, but it's not, not for me to talk about right now. So the ministers that came out at 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning to answer to help with some issues that are being raised and in the public domain, and this is a clarification required. And they could do many more Sunday morning, because Sunday morning a lot of people tune in. Some thousands went tune in this morning. So in that way, if she could get a 7 o'clock hour and make some announcements, especially with respect to what happened with the thing in Tobago and the election coming up and all those kinds of things. You want to put the cards. It would not be nice to see Tobago that these guys and them win the election, but with a small margin only. That would not be nice. So it might reflect on her. What we don't know. I'll just figure it. So what I mean is that allowing these people to fill the vacuum. You fill the vacuum with your words and your thinking and your everything. You could do a little bit of Trumpism too. You don't have to lie, but just talk the truth, because you're doing stuff. A lot of things that are happening is happening too quick. Look, you see what happened when we talked about that last week sometime or whatever. We talked about these ministers and these laws that are coming out and draconian, so to speak, in penalty. So this the way it is implemented might be civil servants who are doing what they know best, which is to implement when they want to and when they don't want to. Perhaps there's a hidden agenda here. Something is going on here they need to know. So all these kinds of things, the prime minister has to get out there and make the announcement, use the bullhorn. This is not difficult to do. She has not done so. I'm not saying so because maybe other people are asking for it. I don't care. This is the correct thing to do. No press conference with you. Press conference with the ministers. Yes. You, no. Lady Gauntlet down. Let it know like it is. Does that make sense? No?
Yeah, so anyway, Dr. Ramrope, I'm happy that you joined us here. We were just talking a little bit about this 16 million paid between 2015 to 2024 in liabilities that the government had to pay out, and it cost the government 37 million in lawyers.
Yeah.
In lawyers fee.
Well, I mean, I have been one of the persons who have actually done the forensic analysis for the attorneys in a number of these cases, actually. In about, I would say, maybe almost 40 to 50% of these cases, I have done the medicals well, they sent it to me to do what is called a Part 33 report, which is a forensic analysis to make the case. Luckily, Southwest have settled quite a lot, and North Central, I think. Northwest, where we still haven't had much
Central.
information. I think it's much more for Northwest. It's just that they haven't given out the information to this researcher, to this reporter. So it's much more. This is just, unfortunately, this is just the reported. The Northwest is still missing, and Tobago is still missing the full information from Tobago. So it's highly likely that it's much more, because as I said, I have been the doctor who did some of the medical report analysis for some of the attorneys, very prominent attorneys in Trinidad, and it's quite a very interesting thing. And I was interviewed for a job in the RHA Friday. It's the director of health. I went and I put in my application because, I'm not doing anything. So I said, well, let me try and see. So one of the first questions I was asked by a minister's wife was the same thing. How do you mitigate some of the problems that we're having in the RHA? So my answer was very, very simple. It's a very complex problem to sort out, because the whole systems. Remember when we spoke earlier this year, last year, about when I joined and I met Sumant, and we talked about, and I think, Doctor, we all mentioned the fact that, and you keep saying it, is that we have to have a proper assessment of the current state of affairs in all the ministries, and in this case in the RHAs. Like, in order to improve something, you have to know what is the problem. So one of my responses was, we have tools such as enterprise risk management in healthcare and root cause analysis. These are tools that very big, very prominent and reputable healthcare systems all over the world, like Kaiser Permanente, John Hopkins, all of these big hospital systems, tertiary healthcare systems, secondary, primary healthcare systems, they have all done this. And it's an enterprise risk management tool where you look at reducing risk in all the service lines in a healthcare setting. So I said, well, we have to definitely look at that problem, because one of the biggest problems we have, Gary, guys, is in Trinidad is documentation. Very illegible and poor writing by the physicians who are recording on the notes, by the nurses, and not just poor writing, but improper writing. They're not writing proper diagnoses. They're not writing seen with the specialists. Certain key elements of the documentation are absent. There are a lot of prescription errors, where the wrong drugs or not even giving the drugs, to people. All of those are incidents that must be recorded. So one of the things I told them was that the incident reporting system, everybody here knows that if you don't have an idea of what your incidents of things are, you can't know what the real problem is. And then something just happens because you're not improving your what we call the early warning system. Just in disaster management, the early warning system, your human body, as a physician myself, is what protects us all is our early warning systems in our body. In diabetics and people with decreased immune systems, where you have cancer, people on steroids, diabetics, where the immune system is depressed, the early warning systems are affected. So you can't pick up the signals that tells you about a disease. The same thing in the healthcare system. If you can't pick up the problems and you don't have research, and you don't have analysis of records on a random basis, and you don't have proper performance appraisals, and you don't go through some of the near misses and try to identify the errors, and you won't pick up the adverse events, because the adverse events are directly proportional to the cases that will go up for negligence. Nowadays in this economic times, statistically, if you look at the journals and you go to the peer-reviewed articles and in scientific journals, you see that healthcare management journals tells you that when times of economic depression, the litigation, especially in the healthcare environment, is higher. People sue more. It's basically what happens. Once people are having problems, they're gonna sue more. So attorneys will make more money because people are going to pick up and fight everything. And the other thing we have going against us is the UNC is in power now. So when the UNC is in power, every person, everybody will be looking at everything, critically. It's like if UNC comes and there's a more vigilance against any bad things at all. So that's one of the negative aspects of a UNC in power, or even
But,
NAR. When NAR was there, any opposition, because PNM is the country is PNM.
but
I mean, I wouldn't.
Doc,
I can
could
tell
I
you.
suggest something? Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Oh
Yes.
yeah. I just want to suggest, say for example, if a case has been brought against the hospital, right? The attorney, as far as I could see, will say not a problem. Could you produce all your policies and procedures with regards to such a case, and once you start from there, and if you say you don't have or it's inadequate or whatever, you lose the case
Yeah, a lot of times
because
I've been the expert witness for a number of these cases,
yeah,
and the
where's your
answer to that
policy
is
and procedure?
in our law in Trinidad,
Hmm.
the skill in a lot of these cases is the attorneys. A lot of times the attorneys who are hired by some of the people who fight the cases, unfortunately, they don't have enough money to hire good attorneys, and
Hmm.
they end up having a problem, because when I'm cross-examined by some of the attorneys who some of the people choose,
Hmm.
they just don't ask the right questions. When you
That's
appear
correct.
on the
Yeah,
when you appear as an
I,
expert witness, you have
I
to
could
answer yes or no, yes or no. You can't
I
really
could see that
go too
happening.
much.
So one is your policies and procedures, and secondly, what's your training program?
Correct. And it's one of the things we have is one of my responses to the interview was the implementation of a business process. I
Mhm.
left in 2011 from the health sector to go to the ODPM.
Yeah.
And when I was medical director there, before I left, I had started implementing a business process in the clinical world. And I was really knocked down by the physicians, because at that time, the supervisors I had above me didn't really understand and didn't care about what I was doing. They were just politically appointed.
Hmm. Hmm.
That was during you know the PNM time, and what happened is that I was not given the support, right, for the doctors to understand that things like clinical audits of practice was something that they needed to do. In other words, then we were having doctors who were coming to the medical director, myself, and saying, well, look, I need to get 100 hip prostheses. And because the reason being is I'm doing 100 cases a year, and I want to get 120 now. And I asked them very clearly, I said, well, okay, if you're doing 100 a year, that's a good statistics, but is it what we're looking for? How many of those actually persons are going back to walk, and if they're taking 6 months to get therapy? And when you look at what was happening is that people were just getting a hip and going home, and they were not rehabilitating. They were not going back to active life. They sat down to get bed sores, and within a few months they die because bladder got infected and all those other things. So yeah, you're replacing hip, and you're using that statistic as a performance indicator, but it's totally wrong. The quality of adjusted life years is what you have to use. You could put in a hip, but if the guy goes home and die with a hip, what's the sense putting in the hip if you don't have therapy to support you? So one of the problems, and you're correct, every business process involved process mapping. Every single process in just like the engineers in a manufacturing industry or in an industrial estate will tell you, every single process, right, has a standard operating procedure, right, to ensure that the accountability of everybody in that responsibility, right, if anything goes wrong, or who is responsible. So therefore, a lot of the times in negligence cases, there is no system that exists, and if there's no system, they tend to start to blame the people. And once you blame the people, and you don't have the systems, standard operating procedures, and you don't have a proper monitoring and incident reporting system by the quality department to monitor to capture all the incidents, you just don't know what is happening, and then you blame the people. And once you start blaming people, that's when the whole thing breaks down. So that's why we developed the tool. The healthcare pundits developed the tool called enterprise risk management, which is basically a risk-based approach to clinical practice, but not just clinical. It's an enterprise-wide risk management system where all segments of the sector, for example, financial, human resources, property maintenance, security, every single service line in the healthcare setting would have to have quality risk or risk management programs geared at identifying. And one of the fundamental requirements would be to have your protocols, your standard operating procedures for every single process. And then you monitor that, you do some process re-engineering so that you make the process more efficient and effective based on the findings, in terms of how you're monitoring the effectiveness of your programs. So it's a problem, because one of the big problems we have in court, when I go and I look at the research, when I do my analysis, my forensic analysis, is poor documentation. And even the consent form is very, very flawed. And one of the things that you take consent from people, but you don't do the proper consultation with the patient, and the patient half the time just signs the form without even knowing, or the doctors explaining what procedure they're going to what they're going to have. And when things happen after, when you go back to the notes, all you see is a signature by an intern or something. And if you're going to be explaining a surgical procedure, then a surgeon has to explain it. And this is the problem, because the specialist is not in hospital. He comes in the morning, or she comes in the morning from 8 to 10, and they go back to the private offices. So the provision of clinical care in hospitals and in other areas are done.
Doc, we're losing your voice. Like you're moving away from the phone or something.
Yeah. Okay. You hear me there now?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is it. The specialist, it's a specialist-run hospital. And therefore, if the specialists are not present, right, to supervise the junior doctors, and the junior doctors write things in the notes without saying that the specialist was there with them, that's another problem. That's another weakness in the system, right? So that's one. The last one, one of the big ones we have right now is what we call the garbage codes. Garbage codes is the certification of debt. The Honorable Minister indicated something about that recently. And this is a big problem we had during COVID. I think we talked about that, Sumant, on this program, where we talked about what happened during COVID, where you don't have a very good idea of the public health, requirements for an RHA. For example, how does an RHA plan its 5 years and 10-year strategy if you are not looking at the mortality rates and getting a clear understanding of the mortality rate, what is causing your deaths? And one of the big problems, obviously, is death, right? And if you writing things like, heart failure, if you're writing things like metastatic cancer, but you don't say where the cancer is coming from, right? These are called what we call garbage codes. In other words, then the death certificates are it serves no purpose because it doesn't give the research department at the Ministry of Planning or Development when they get the healthcare statistics or any R&D department in the RHAs, I don't even know if they are functional ones, that takes the data from the ministry and says, well, okay, we have an increase in cerebrovascular accidents due to diabetes in the 6,000 people, 6 million people, or 6,000 people that we're serving at the Southwest. There is a 60% incidence of the complications of diabetes because we are finding that there are 10% of the persons who are diabetes dying within 5 years of management. These are the kind of things I'm talking about. It's not, is that you can't have a data-driven approach to strategy if you are not having proper death certification as one of the elements, right, to tell you where you're going, right? Medical records management, in other words, and it's very poor. Sometimes we patient comes into the hospital, they don't even have the medical records, and sometimes you have to write on temporary notes. A lot of times when we under the freedom of information, when the defense attorneys asks for the notes and I am asked to review the notes, and you look at the notes, you can clearly see inserts. It's not a stupid. I haven't recommended they go to any document. One of my colleagues from Presentation College is an international document forensic expert. And I can say, Dr. Mohammed, he works in the States. I can say, could you check this for me? And he would most likely verify that a lot of pages are inserted into the blank areas to put things that were not recorded in the first instance. It obviously is botched. One of the things we see is very poor documentation with the nurses. For example, a person is found dead on the bed, and then you see the nurses write something after. He dies at 9 o'clock, right? And they write 8:30, patient seen, 8:35, doctor called, 8:37, doctor didn't respond, 8:39, right, drips was set up, 8:42, and they write this chronological time when they were the ones who were actually dealing with the patient. So they come back now and they write on the notes this chronological time when they are the ones who are dealing with the patient on the bed. So how could they write this in retrospect in such a very precise way? So when you look at those nonsense, these are some of the things you look at the notes and you laugh to yourself because it's so foolish. So there are a lot of things that needs checking, and there's a lot of things that people needs to be taught. I did indicate in my interview that one of the things that I can do, although I do the courses in UTT for a cost, I say, well, I could probably share that knowledge with the clinicians, with the quality department. Instead of being quality officers, they now become quality risk management officers. It's a totally different, lens that they have to look at when they're dealing with their job. They become risk officers, risk management officers, rather than just quality persons who, go through the department and interview people. So these are some of the things that could mitigate against some of the problems we're having. I mean, it's a very complex approach because it's a culture. It's a culture that has to change. Maybe they might have to use IT, Suman, to help with the documentation because quite a lot of these doctors, they scribble and they write very legibly. When you can have dictation that could be done. It's something that could be done on a little device, and then you just put it onto the computer. The AI the use of software can translate that back into using OCR or whatever it is, and you have proper type notes. So a lot of that is because of the practices. Much of the practice needs to be improved. I mean, you have, for example, I don't know if any of you all have ever had a surgery done in the United States or Canada or in Europe. And when you ask for the notes or you look at the notes, man, it's a comprehensive, written, almost like like a book, every single thing that was done. at every single time. In Trinidad and Tobago, in my experience, you have just about a paragraph, and the paragraph, it's so vague, and they don't even describe, what they use, how they use, what were their findings. I mean, a lot of cases have been lost. The RHS had to settle because of poor documentation of the actual procedure, the surgical procedure. So once
But
it's not
Doc,
written,
my
yeah,
concern here is because not everybody have lawyer money. So the amount
yes,
of most of the people are poor and not average, income people and might not even know how to go about this. So most of these people, things that got swept away and not even known, except for the few that sue, and then we get some attention to what really happened and put them in a position where they have to answer. And then they,
yeah,
like you said, start forging the answer because they know they're going to scramble to throw things together to kind of make their defense, and
well,
they still come with a very poor defense. But we have offered the government, our current government, our team here, which I have designated as a risk management quality control team, right? Which we have a wide variety of people here, including yourself, that are capable of ensuring that we don't find ourselves where we are spending money wastefully to cover a lawsuit. I mean, the money is one aspect, but I am concerned about the damages that are taking place, which is somebody dead because of the negligence or incompetence of somebody, or lackadaisical manner of performance.
but
You
one of the
know,
things, Gary, one of the problems that well, I know that the Honorable Prime Minister did indicate on the platforms prior to winning the election that one of the things that she wants to do is to set up um, a, 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 a a system that such persons who may not have legal representation or might have had an adverse event at a hospital or even negligence could actually go to that area and get help. This would serve two purposes. One, they will try to identify the weaknesses of the system and then possibly mediate the case so that it doesn't go to court and there's a lot of money to be saved by mediation. And instead of wasting 16 million, and I tell you the figure is much more. Trust me, this was only up to at
well,
this
in
time.
this case,
Yeah,
16
yeah.
plus 37 for the lawyers.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep,
It's
33.
much more because, as I said, that only is a period of time, and those only are the reported ones, right? So the thing about it is that there are quite a lot of cases still in the courts pending during that time. Because right now I have a few cases on my desk, which is during the same period, which has only now come before the statutory period ends, right? And I have to look at these. I mean, right now I just completed one a couple of days ago, and the RHA will clearly have to pay because again it was really really poor. I mean, one of the problems, I know it's probably has to go to court, so I don't want to indicate too much about it. But what it is that one of the big problems, for example, is that you go into a hospital, and I'll give an example, and you have a procedure. First of all, they don't explain it to you, but you have the procedure. Thank God you live, and then you come out crippled. And then when you come out crippled and you can't move now, you're in a bed and you can only move your head from neck down. You're paralyzed and you're waiting on a report, right, from the pathology lab. Now, when you go in your journals and you see that that report is supposed to take 3 weeks to come back, and then when you look in the records, you see that that report took 3 months to come back, right? They're going to lose the case because the problem is that all over the world, when you look at journals and you pull it from pathology departments with such extreme in centers of excellence like such hospitals here, and the international global time is 10 days to get that report and back so that you can plan the treatment of that cancer. You have reports coming back nearly 3 months after. So it means that in that 2 months or 3 months that you don't have a report, what is happening to the cancer in this patient? You understand what I mean? So these are
Yep.
some of the things that, and it's not the doctor, it's not the people there, it's the system. And therefore, this is what we have to understand. If you have somebody who's managing the system, and you pick up the fact that your 10-day period has exceeded, right, then you can actually contract private services or external services because the important thing here is the patient's cancer, not the fact that you're not getting the test done. You understand? So this is where management at all levels is very important and identification of the risk. The risk here is not so much that you're taking long to get the test, it's the fact that if you don't get that test right, that patient could have complications and put more burden on the healthcare facility, because now you have more metastases, more problems, more ICU treatment, more hospital stay. The patient has been in the hospital for 3 months. That's more money for you. You know what I mean? So if you look at the overall cost, it's cheaper for you to take that specimen and ship it to Miami and get back the result in 10 days. You understand what I'm saying? So this is where management comes in, and this is what we are trying to say. We have been trying to say that. Obviously, in the last 10 years, the PNM dropped the ball. But what happened is that, we are here. I mean, Sumant, we talked about this early o'clock in this program. And once the healthcare, now that everything is over, we talked about this, we talked about the Christmas, we talked about Carnival, and we said in May, we said in June, July, August, we said that once you have a complete assessment of the status of all the ministries, in particular health, in this case, the discussion is about our health sector, is that you have to have a complete analysis of the existing service level that you're offering, because it's only then you'll be able to benchmark it. It's the only way that you could identify trends, and it's the only way that you could say after 5 years that you have improved something from a point A to a point B. How can you come and tell anybody that you're improving something to B if you don't know what A is? And that is what we are saying. To mitigate all of these millions of dollars spent, this is a performance indicator, by the way. This is a KPI, right? The indicator, one of the key indicators of performance of this healthcare sector is the percentage of mitigation, is the percentage of litigation, right?
Which could have been invested into our health sector and bring in much better care for our people. This is money going down the drain. But Doc, go ahead. But what I need to know is that we could go to the emergency room and they could take blood from you, and within a couple of hours they can get the result, and the doctor know how to treat you. That's what we need.
That is
not
the problem is here is that because the bottom line, right, in the healthcare sector, in the public healthcare sector, is not financial, right? It's quality. In a private hospital like West Shore or in Trinidad, any one of the big private hospitals, the bottom line is financial returns. So that when you look at the difference, if, for example, you have CEOs and key managers who don't have to, make a buck, when the month come, they get in the salary no matter what, because the bottom line is quality, right? Quality healthcare, satisfaction of the clients, and whatever it is, right? And that is not something important. So you keep pushing in billions of dollars in the health sector, right? Because there's no revenue return, right, as in the private sector. So that is the reason why a number of these simple little things you talk about, right, they have started. I mean, even when I was in there as a medical director, a lot of those little things where persons could come into the ER, we had point of care testing, and we had blood testing within the emergency room at San Fernando, and we were able to push bloods right there while the person was in casualty and get some immediate returns even before sending it to the lab. So these things were there. But if you don't have a proper scheduled and random maintenance system, if you don't have a preventative maintenance system that is monitored by a manager, right, for example, in the engineering department or in the hospital management department, the hospital manager, because he or she will be the one managing that aspect of it. Are they maintaining?
1 second, you guys, I want to encourage you to look at the screen, because we have someone making a comment in the chat there about spending 11 hours at the hospital. So while Dr. Ramrup is speaking, you guys can look at the screen. Dr. Maraji, have your laptop?
Yeah.
Yes. Now you see, this is part of the quality experience. And this is something that is very extremely important in litigation cases. Patient satisfaction. One of the many of you all coming from the States would understand the joint accreditation standards, what we call the JCAHO, international accreditation standards. These are standards that are set in all major healthcare systems that allow persons to have a very good experience when they come into emergency rooms or any part of a healthcare setting. And part of it is, the environment of care. right? The ability to I mean, if you come into a hospital for a broken toenail, right? You would have to wait 11 hours because in that emergency room, you would have persons who are coming in nearly dead. And obviously, the priority would be to treat those persons because they are knocking on death's door. Whereas you with your toe, you have a little longer while to knock on death's door with that. So sometimes you end up spending 10, 11 hours before you are seen in terms of priority. And that is what we call triage. But you see, if you don't explain that to person and if you don't put them in an environment where they can be have a cup of water or, look at a television or have somebody explain their problem to them, right, before they see the doctor or the nurse, then that 11 hours becomes 100 hours and they get pissed off and they're not satisfied. So although you might not treat the nail, or maybe you might do something bad with the nail or damage the toe. If they had a good experience and people were customer centric and they were people centered and they treated them nice and make them feel happy, although you butched up the toe, they still would be satisfied. You understand? So this is one of the problems, and this is one of the things we have to do in the private setting when we meet patients who come into your offices and things. You have to treat them nice, and you have to make sure that they understand everything, because you save yourself millions of dollars in lawsuits if you don't do that. Whereas in hospital setting, the guys there they don't have that in top of their mind, because the bottom line again is not money. The supervisors are not looking and measuring the quality. The quality reporting doesn't go back up to the board, and the board doesn't focus on it because it's not one of their key metric. It might be, but how they're monitoring it, they don't have any persons with any expertise in healthcare management on these boards. You see, even some of the advisors, if I may say so, are not fully qualified in managing healthcare sectors. They have no training in healthcare management. I mean, this is a damn science. You have to go to university to learn these things. There are tools and courses that you have to do. And if you're a clinician, a doctor who has been working 20 years, you don't have that. With all due respect, you can't come and manage a health sector if for 20 years you're working as a doctor and you didn't make such changes in the health sector, and now you're coming back after 5 years to manage the health sector. You have to get qualified managers, in healthcare, because if you don't do that, you're not going to make a change. At the end of 5 years, another party comes back in power. They do what they have to do, and this is why we suffer so much in this country, because it's a third world country again, because this is why we suffer. Politics, the intervention of politics in key service areas such as disaster management, emergency management, crime, for as an example, and healthcare, right? These are areas that you must have competent, qualified persons in positions as CEOs. I mean, maybe not the board, but at least one person on the board, and if they can't do that, then at least the advisor, or maybe they have to hire a company to work with them, to make sure that they have these healthcare management strategies within or embedded in the service, and make sure that after 5 years, it becomes legacy. The UNC has to start creating a legacy within these institutions, especially health, where they are able to say at the end of 5 years, I have put something in place so that even if a government changes, these programs will remain, and I'll be able to have my grandchildren and my grandchildren would have better care in this country. If we don't do that, then we're back to square one every 5 years or 10
Well,
years.
listen to this. This is from the same listener in the audience here. I was wheeled in with chest pain long after seeing, not long after seeing doctors. Hours after we was getting sick again, and told him what? Told him he asked me what I want him to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. I would be surprised that a physician or maybe a frustrated physician even would say that, because it all
Doc,
depends
we're
on.
losing their voice again. But when you see the level of arrogance, because they can get away with it, and this is the kind of things we need put in place. We need some kind of an organized structure where people are held accountable by the management, and a patient can complain, and there's some kind of resolution that take place. So these people must know, because of the structure we put in place, that they will be held accountable for their actions. And I mean, there
Well,
has to be an upgrade. We didn't change government to maintain this nonsense.
one of the key things is, for example, what you have here, right, is what we look at, somebody has had an experience, right? There was one side to the story. Of course, we'll have to have the other side. The ability. What has happened here is that there's a forum. Apparently, this person is on the forum and they have aired a complaint. It's a complaint in a sense. It's an incident that needs to be reported, right? So, as I indicated before, if you don't know about the incident, you can't fix it, right? So here it is that you have an incident. And if we have now, for example, as I said, I remember saying this to Sumant, what we have to do is we have to, UNC as a government, they have to create a social media platform or at least a team, right? There are a lot of young people looking for jobs, right? You bring them in and you start monitoring your social media. There's software for that. I mean, you know that, Sumant. There's software that picks up certain keywords that can be brought back and you will be able to analyze it, right? You can use AI and you can use software and programs that actually picks up a lot of these complaints in the whole internet, right? In Trinidad and Tobago, right? That tells you, well, look, hey, a complaint has been made. You can see it on Facebook, you see it on Instagram, you see it on all the different chats, all the different social media platforms, and you can begin to have at least an idea of what is happening out there. Some of these complaints can be addressed, right? There's customer feedback. You kind of call back the person and have an idea, get a little report of what he experienced so that we can go back and find out. If you come back to what I'm talking about, and we spoke to earlier, that if you have a process mapping and you map every single process, you make sure you develop your standard operating procedures. And the person who was, I think we were speaking to earlier, I can verify quite a lot that there are not much written standard operating procedures in the health sector. They have never done it. A lot of times they are verbal procedures. My son is a doctor there now, and not how much has changed in terms of written standard operating procedures in at least in clinical healthcare. But customer service is something that is supposed to have proper standard operating procedures, so that if you go back through the SOPs and you look at who was actually responsible for this person's experience in casualty when he waited for so long, then he finally found a doctor, and then when he was getting treated or after the treatment, the doctor says, what you want me to do, right? I mean, obviously he has had a bad experience, and maybe he's had a condition that probably didn't need urgent treatment, and there were other persons in the department who were knocking on death's door, and this person probably had a little, maybe day or two before he knocked on death's door. The point is, he was obviously triaged, but he wasn't treated with such respect under what we call the Patients' Rights Charter, right? There is a Patients' Rights Charter that was introduced in the UNC government of Pandey, right, et al. So that Patients' Rights Charter is an existing document, and that guides what a patient is expected to experience in the healthcare sector, right? Therefore, this person had a breach of his patient's rights as one. Two, the accreditation standard that is responsible for explanation of this person, telling him what he had and explaining to him that, okay, well, you might have a problem. It is definitely going to have to be treated. Right now, we may not have beds. Right now, I have other urgent matters to deal with. We will give you an injection. We'll monitor you, and we'll come back to you. We'll put you in this area. Yeah, I know we don't have certain things here because we have a problem right now, but have a seat here and maybe get your family in, or you can go outside and have a coffee and come back. Or, these are things that it goes a long way in trying to assure the person and giving him a patient experience that he's satisfied. And that is why I'm telling you that a big proportion of the healthcare is not so much the actual diagnosis and the treatment that you get for your problem, but it's always that sort of customer focused care that the person needs in a vulnerable time, and in a time when he or she needs the little help and the discussion. The clinical healthcare setting doesn't have that. And that is why we can make sure we have patient care. You can hire some customer service people to back up that service and give the person a better customer experience. It wouldn't cost much. There are quite a lot of people who are looking for jobs right now, right? For example, there are a lot of unemployed doctors who don't mind getting into the clinical healthcare setting, to work with some of these teams to get these little small things going. So there are innovative, solutions to proper customer care. making the customer experience, and I'm saying patient experience, better. It's not rocket science. It has been done, and it is done in quality healthcare systems. I mean, you go to
Yeah,
Mount
but
Sinai, you go to Johns Hopkins, you go to Cedars, you go to Jackson Memorial in Miami. I mean, there is definitely an increase in the customer focus approach, to healthcare. I mean, you have robots now running around the corridors and telling you where to go.
but
You understand?
Yeah,
Doc,
doc,
let me interject here a bit. Let
yeah,
me interject here a
yeah.
bit. You know, the whole system, I've passed through in the banking sector, I've passed through the British system, I've also passed through the American system.
Right.
And the British system is that the boss is always right.
Yeah.
Now, many of these doctors, they probably work over 12 hours on a shift. Am I right or wrong? I mean, you're in it
Well,
here.
the answer to that is yes. The
But
junior
let's
doctors,
go again. Let's go
yeah.
again. The junior doctors are not always treated nicely by the consultants, etc. I've heard some horrific stories on that. And that culture, once it starts permeating from the top, it has to change from the top as well.
Yes, I agree.
Because
There is
the
definitely
seniors are very arrogant, and they'll treat the junior doctors as probably flies on the wall. And I think it's a cultural thing that has to change from the top, and that has to be highlighted within the system itself.
yeah,
Yeah, it's the
definitely
Maharaja, is the
one of the
Maharaja
things.
mentality.
Well, one of the things
That's
is that the senior specialists must be present. I mean, the thing about it is that half the time, I remember working as a young intern in Toronto General Hospital. I also went to Jackson Memorial. One of my friends was the head of the emergency department there. He was a Israeli captain in the army, and he was a doctor. He was a trauma surgeon. He actually headed the trauma unit in Jackson Memorial, and I was able to visit there. And I remember on the day that the guys were on call, the senior specialists, the residents, they call them there, and we call them registrars in Trinidad, who are like the second in command.
Mhm.
They were physically present during the day. I mean, they were there for 24 hours, walking around the hospital, seeing, working, dealing with people, checking notes and whatever. And the patients were probably much more than we were having at San Fernando. I was head of the emergency department there for nearly 10 years, and I was medical director for 4 years. And I know what I'm talking about. And the thing about it is that I could tell you that 60% of my specialist doctors were never in hospital after 10 hours. I'm sorry, after 2 hours of the day.
But
And,
who
and
would
there were
they report
some of them
to,
were not
Doc?
even there at all.
Who would they report to?
The specialist doctors at the time would report to the medical director. The medical director will actually go through the executive medical director to go to the board.
And
So,
is the
like for
medical
example, when I was medical director, I had 50 specialists, 50 specialist medical officers, and 55 residents, or what we call PGY1 or senior registrars. Right? They all reported to me via the heads of division. The heads of departments
but
were
wouldn't they have their own job descriptions and so on
so
to
they
be
had
present? Present.
each one has a job description, and each one had a performance appraisal that would have to be
Exactly.
signed by the medical
Exactly.
director. Yeah.
So discipline starts from the top.
And this was the problem, and this is because one of the problems is that when you start, and you see, the when you begin, and that's why I didn't last long as medical director. I only served 4 years, well, three and a
Mhm.
half. And the reason for that is because of the guys who were working with me, the senior heads. They obviously had more political clout than I had. So what happened is that they made sure that I didn't go back, because I started
Mhm.
changing all of that.
Mhm.
We started saying, look, listen, you have to manage your doctors better, and these are some of the things you're going to have to do, because we need to change it. They put me on the papers, and there was one particular doctor was putting me on the mirror every week, and they were saying, "Oh, Dr. Ramrup is asking the senior doctors to, to score cards they didn't even understand what a balanced scorecard was, because
Mm-hmm.
we were asking them now to begin. We gave them the key performance indicators in each one of the different specialties, and we were asking them to try to measure these and bring it back to me as the director, because one of the things is that you have to make sure you have a data-driven approach to what I was asking them to do. Saying, well, look, I
Mm-hmm.
noticed you're doing this, they would watch it in the face and say, how the hell do you know that? How could you prove that? So one of the big problems now when it
Doc, we lost your voice there. We lost you.
one of the big problems we had in terms of industrial relations was trying to have a evidence based approach to the discussions and the complaints that you or some of the accusations that you were making as medical director. And the reason for that is that you didn't have one, the support of the board, you didn't have the support of the executive medical director. And therefore, when you started to sort of implement change and try to change a culture, you got into trouble because the guys started to undermine you in the media as well as politically.
Mm-hmm.
So you see, it's one thing to say that I had the opportunity and we did change a lot of things. In fact, we changed the whole triage system in hospital. It was terrible. I mean, so there were things that we did change,
Mm-hmm.
and they were slowly, we started to influence the change. We got laptops for all the heads of departments because we said, listen, you have to stay in hospital more, and then they come up and say, well, where you want us to stay? We don't have a room. We have no offices. You want us to stay in hospital, but where you want us to stay? You want us to work from the car? So I'm going to have to go in my private office because they don't have a place for us to stay, right? And then one of them will come in and say, well, when we come, we can't even get a damn park, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's they obviously had their own issues, and then we say, okay, look, I tell you what, I will get a laptop for you, right? I want you to go, right? If you want to leave the hospital after your 2 or 3 hours, fine. But I am going to be going on performance. At the end of the week, I need you to make sure and give me these things. And if you can't do it in your office here, you have no office, well, take your laptop and go home or go in your office and do it there. They got laptops. And during my 4 years I was there, we were able to improve a lot of stuff because they all got laptops. I don't know what happened there when I left. You know what I mean? I don't know if they got back the laptops or what happened then. But as I know it, they continued to. Some of them never came back in hospital. Some of them came for 1 hour and go home and go in their private practice. So the whole system went back with the change of medical director. See.
Mm-hmm.
So it's my. I mean, listen. I'm telling you what really happened, and this is why when you tried to change it, I was the one who actually was kicked out. My contract was not renewed. All right. So this is where you have the professional culture. It's going to take quite a lot of stuff. I tried to tell, okay, I told the CEO, I said, listen to me, guys. First of all, if I'm going to tell head of department that he only comes in the hospital for 1 hour, I have to prove that, right? I can't go in front of the car park and wait, and when he comes in, I watch him and take a picture and say, hey, hi, welcome. And then when he comes out of the compound, I say, I see you. You have to have a way to do it. So I said, listen, what you can do is what I experienced in other hospitals, for example. And I said, look, when you come into the car park, you slide your ID card on the compound, right? And when you leave in the car park, you slide it back again to come out, right? It means that on a computer somewhere, I have when you enter the car park and when you left the car park, right? There are certain things that when I remember in Jackson Memorial, every time the consultant went into any part of the hospital, he slid his card. He swiped his card on the department door, right? For him to go into ICU, for him to go into operating theater, for him to go to clinic, right? A lot of times he swiped his card. So the thing about it is that when you do that, it means that you can tell that this doctor has been there during the day because you see his swipe coming up. I said, well, why don't we introduce this? Then I can sit down with my 15 heads of departments on my weekly meeting with them and say, hey, guys, I noticed you didn't enter the hospital at all. So this is basically the problem. So it's the management of our health sector has got into a rut, right, where the professionals are obviously taking advantage of the system. So we said, okay, listen, let us do this then. I went to the board and I said, guys, listen, let us do this. You have consultants who don't come to hospital at all, and they're taking $40,000 a month, right? They're supposed to work 28 hours a week, and they don't come at all. I know for a fact because I went to one of them in West Shore, in St. Clair Nursing Home, and I sat in his office, and I asked the secretary, I said, could I see a doctor? And she said, okay. And when I went in, he was surprised to see me there. And this was in the middle of the week. I said, well, we have a problem. We had a maxi taxi that crashed down by the creek, right? We had 15 people, right, in that accident. Suraj Ramachan, one of the ministers, and he came down to the casualty department and he was telling me at the point in time, Dr. Ram, how are you managing this? He was very happy to see how we did. We converted the whole clinic area into a waiting area and we were speaking to all the relatives. Right? We had 3 operating theaters going. We had doctors who weren't even on call coming out and taking out kidneys and spleens and all kind of thing. And you know where the consultant was? He wasn't there at all. Right? He was a UE paid consultant working in San Fernando. He wasn't there at all. So the next couple of mornings when I went on the ward, I never saw him. He never even came to the ward rounds. So when I went up to St. Clair and when I knocked on the door, the man was sitting in his office. I said, well, how come you didn't come to San Fernando? He was surprised to see me. You see? So this is the kind of nonsense that was going on, right? And it's still going on, right? And therefore I said, well, why don't we have 3 different types of consultants? Since you have a visiting consultant, clearly he was only visiting. Why don't you continue to pay him as a visiting consultant? So when he comes to the hospital, you could ask him to come down and see the thoracic cases. You could come down and let him see the spinal cases and the neurological cases. Because that's what he's doing. Because he's not in hospital, he's a visiting consultant. So pay him because you're paying him anyway. But the consultant, now the registrars or the PGY1, or we call the registrars here, who is actually on the ground all day, why don't you give him now what is called the consultant job? So you're making him now the physical consultant who is actually in the hospital, which is what you want, right? For all that we talked about in terms of customer care and supervision and reducing mitigation and reducing risks and making sure the young doctors are properly treated and explained and sign the consent form, as a specialist. He's there now because he's not going to his practice. He's a physical consultant. And then the third consultant is your administrative consultant, the consultant who actually runs the department, signs the rosters, right, develops the strategy, revises the standard operating procedures, right, organizes the clinical audit. So that here is now 3 levels of consultancies with the same set of damn consultants. And what you did now, you allowed some of the registrars now who would have waited years for jobs, while the guy who's only coming and going in his office, some of them not even coming, will occupy that position for 10 years. And then the senior registrar will sit down there as a registrar and not have the possibility of going up. So what he does, he goes and creates his own private practice. And then after a while, he comes for 1 hour in the hospital, he goes to his private practice too. You understand? So, and of course they didn't do it because clearly after 3 years, the consultants didn't want me around because I was trying to change their method and their lifestyles and their revenue streams. And that was it, So, I think I'll stop talking there because clearly, it's definitely things that would need to change. And these are things that would come with proper management,
And that underscores the need of all that you have said, underscores the need for systems to be revisited, re-engineered, and keeping up with the times. Because, way back, that is my forte, management information system. That's my one of my specializations, I should say.
Yeah.
And to me, looking at systems in TNT, literally all the ministries and state agencies have a systems problem. We are I would say, not third world, but way beyond, below third world. 30, 40-year-old system still in existence. Nobody wants to change it. Nobody wants to ruffle the feathers. They feel let's keep the status quo going, and so on. So we are comfortable as a medical personnel now. But hey, once I get my monthly salary, I'm okay, man. Let's go as it's going. Why ruffle the boat? Why shake the boat at all?
Yeah.
Unless these changes, and we really have to, this has to come from the top.
Yeah.
The ministers and so on have to have that vision and the willingness to change.
Yeah.
And by the way, as well as get the seeing some of their senior persons on board, who are really willing to make that sacrifice for the benefit of all. Only then can we progress forward. And not only in the medical field, all fields. Look, the simple thing like planning. Okay, a government comes in, this government scraps all plans the previous government did and come in with their new plans. 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road is a whole new set of new plans again for the same thing, done to be done in a different way. So what is really happening to development in TNT is that we always move sideways. We could never go forward. We can never move forward because we only changing plans and new nation comes. So instead of doing X, we're doing Y now. But the result is the same. You're stagnated. You never can go forward. And that's the whole thing. You see, unlike countries like Singapore and so on, when they do a plan, it's a 20 or 30-year-old plan. Whichever government comes into power continues where the previous government stepped out. So that progress, the momentum is forward. There's no sideways, no scrap lines. The momentum is forward in that case. But when you have our system, it's all geared towards sideways movement and not forward movement. And this is my opinion. This is the biggest bugbear because we have been government, and we always started with the same 5 years going forward, another 10 years going backward, another 5 years going forward and correcting what the previous 10 years did, right or wrong. And that's the way. So forget about developing TNT. It's just about existence in 5-year intervals. So that's how I see it.
Ahmad, just to sum it up, the problem is here. No one is held accountable. So you can have all the SOPs and all this great framework and stuff, but no one is held accountable. Simple.
Yeah, and the reason
So,
being, Ken,
so,
is
so it's a
that
dog trying to catch his tail there.
yeah, part of the problem, Ken, is the reason why we don't have that accountability is because we don't have the process mapping, the processes in hospital in healthcare sets in our healthcare systems, unlike engineering, in the airline industry, or where you have to have them in the energy industry, in the plants where engineers like you would understand that you have to have your process mapping. If you don't do that, then everything collapses, right? Now in the healthcare setting, where your processes are definitely not like an engineer, but it definitely it has to be mapped and it has to be recorded. So you don't have accountability because you can't come back now and say Stephen Ramup is responsible for that process, and that is the process that has been flawed. You understand? So herein lies the problem. And then let's say there are a lot of negligence cases, right? And some of the cases are because of a lack of supervision of the experts, that is the persons at the highest level who have been trained, right, who have studied, who are supposed to be up to date with the current contemporary peer-reviewed scientific journals, right, of clinical practice in their relevant specialties, right, guided by not just professional standards but accreditation standards and the Patients' Rights Charter. Some of them don't even know that this is a Patients' Rights Charter. Some of them don't even want, the Ministry of Health has never implemented and universally, put in place the national accreditation standards for hospital. They have not done that, right? So therefore, what happens is that there are no accreditation standards awareness, right, of any one of the clinical and non-clinical providers in hospitals and in secondary and primary healthcare systems in Trinidad and Tobago, because the Ministry of Health, the chief medical officer, is not a manager, he's not a surgeon general, he's not a manager of healthcare, he's a public health person who has no managerial skills in rolling out and measuring and putting in programs that translates from the service level agreement of the Ministry of Health with the RHAs under the RHA Act. The Ministry of Health has a service level agreement with key deliverables of the RHAs. The RHA CEOs is supposed to report to the chairman of the board, who's supposed to report to the ministry because they are the politicians. But at the same time, the chief medical officer is supposed to be meeting with the CEOs who are not the politicians. All right, and the doctors on the board maybe, and they should be driving strategy from the ministry and ruling out that strategy setting up and making sure that the standard operating procedures are universal in all the RHAs. How could you have a standard operating procedure for appendicitis or appendectomy in Eastern Regional Health Authority, totally different and non-existent in San Fernando General Hospital or Cuba or Point, and none of them have a SOP that is universal, right? In other words, then that says, well, you have to do A, B, C, D, F, G, H. If you don't do F, then something is wrong. But if you don't have that for all the RHs, then how can you benchmark what is happening at Eastern and Southwest? Because you haven't universally set an SOP for doing an appendectomy in a public care hospital. You understand? So if you don't
That's a good
do
point.
that, right, then you have a problem, because you cannot come now and say that Eastern Regional Health Authority is getting the quality awards, because who is judging quality? The ministry is judging quality. You can't judge yourself. You have to have an independent quality assurance system that judges you. You can't come now and say we are the best out of 4, because you're judging your own quality. So, these are some of the shit that has to change,
You had a good point there. With the universal SOPs,
Yes.
so everyone is on the same page.
Yeah, and
right?
in healthcare, for insurance purposes, for example, Medicare and whatnot in the US, and all over the universe, it's called Common Procedural Terminology, CPT. It's called CPT coding. So therefore, each procedure within a hospital, whether it's somebody taking a pee in a bathroom, right, has a CPT code. You know what I mean? So these are some of the things that they have to implement, right? They had a guy that I think it was the PNM government. They hired to do the CPT codes from the ministry. I remember he interviewing me when I think it was medical director or head of the trauma department at San Fernando. And I think he came down or whatever. He stole the government money and he went away. He never implemented the CPT codes. But it's so simple that you could actually go to the US and you could download the CPT codes. There are books with the CPT codes. You could go on Amazon and buy them. You know what I mean? And all you have to do is to buy the software, get the software, put it in, adapt it for our thing, right? And then listen, the insurance companies will love that. Right now, because you have about Guardian Life, Algeco, all of these insurance companies and private medical centers charging 10,000 for appendectomy, 8,000, 15,000, 20,000, whatever. The insurance companies in Trinidad and Tobago have to come together and say, look, we will have to have a limit as to what we're going to pay. How come one doctor in one medical center charging 20, one and the other charging 15? So there's no price limit out there, but the insurance companies every day have a ceiling that they will pay. So they sort of manage it at that level. But then the same cost of an appendectomy privately is the same cost in a public healthcare setting. Except in the public healthcare setting, since the bottom line is not revenue generation, it's quality, it means that you're putting more competencies towards the same thing, and therefore it costs more in the public healthcare sector. Instead of in a private healthcare setting, they want them out of the hospital in 1 day, 2 days. The faster they get them out is better. Whereas in the public healthcare system, you're keeping a man for a week. You understand? So every day he stays in hospital is an extra I think it's $15,000-$20,000 a night for a public health hospital compared to a private hospital. So it means it has to cost the taxpayers, because it's costing the government every night a man stays when he shouldn't stay there. Yeah, the guy who's waiting 10 or 15 or 3 months for a pathology test because he's a cripple in hospital, and you can't send him to a private down center, or you don't negotiate and you don't come outside and say, well, okay, guys, we have a number of stroke patients who, when they come in, they can only spend 3 days in hospital, because after that we can't do anything for them. Could we contract that services outside at a cheaper rate? You know what I mean? Could we have an institution that will take care of the patients and then what we call a step down, and then send them to their homes? And this is what we talked about, Sumant. We talked about retrofitting, Ken. We talked about the policy of the government was to go to certain homes and retrofit their homes, create ramps, fix their toilets, educate the people, have the nurse visitor go and see them every week or 2, set up a system where we have district nurses that can go in, right? Customer care persons who could go in and help the family adjust to the persons with the stroke at home. Because every day that a person spends in hospital, it costs you 20 times more than that to have the person at home, right, with the same care that he's getting in hospital. Why must you have an RN, a registered nurse, who is
Dr.
capable of doing
Ramu, why?
sorting? Yeah.
Sorry, why would it cost so much more, 20 times the private? Why would that be the case?
Why is it costing 20 more times within the hospital than privately? Because
I know.
privately, when you retrofit your home, right? The reason why public healthcare is costing more is that when a person comes into hospital, the processes are more. He goes through casualty, right? He goes to the clinic, he sees a clerk. The clerk has to be paid for every time she or he spends with her. Then the clerking system, you have somebody waiting there. Remember, we talked about the cost is what, $1 million that they're paying for litigation. That's not it, that's what they're actually paying out. There are many other costs that have to be worked out, right? In terms of time, the opportunity cost for the patients and all of these things. I mean, these are things that really, really cost more money. So that when the person goes into hospital, now you have about 10 other people coming to see him in 5 different shifts. When they go to a nursing home, they're fast tracked. As soon as they get into the hospital, the clerk sends them into the hospital. They get their blood test within a short space of time. They don't wait a whole day to get back a blood test result. That's one. Then when they go to the operating theater, they might have a section that will come in and prevent the person from going in right away. And then you have 4 cases. Instead of doing it 10 o'clock in the hospital, they'll do it at 3 o'clock in the night when the doctors are finished with their ward rounds and they call, they do it then. All of that is extra cost. In a nursing home, man, as soon as you come in, right? Once the theater is free, within a few hours, you get your surgery. By evening, you get your little treatment, you get your good food. Next day out. In hospital, that same time is about 5 days or 3 days or hours more. Much more staff involved. So that is why it costs more in the public setting compared to the private setting for some of the things that we talked about. In terms of rehabilitation and stroke, when a person is in hospital, again, they're occupying a bed. Either it's an ICU or in a step down HDU or a step down care system, and that has quite a lot of intensive care nursing, equipment, suction tips, a lot of stuff that is extremely expensive. Doctors running 3 shifts checking on them, about 3 or 4
What you
staff
give?
coming in the ward, so the cost is higher in
What I
hospital.
hear you saying is you're making a case to shut down all the government hospitals and let us encourage a private sector.
That's
Uh,
correct. That's correct. Let the private sector initiative
Shut
meet with
down.
some of your key
Yeah,
stakeholders in the
no,
private
shut it
sector.
down. Shut it down totally.
No, what we have
Let
to do is
everything.
no. There are certain cases that have to stay in hospital. For example, if you have, let us say, you have 5 beds, right, and in those beds you have 3 stroke persons who are occupying those beds, and you're not doing anything besides sucking them. Right? All you're doing is suction. After a while, certain strokes, you can't do anything. You're not operating on them, but they're just occupying a bed. What you really have to do is to take those 3 stroke persons and take them to a step down facility where they can only get nursing care. That's all they need. Suction care, turning, suction. You don't need a hospital for that. You need a certain facility that takes care of a nursing care facility, which can be done by retired nurses or
Well, I
whatever
think
in the private sector.
no, I
Right?
think that's a brilliant idea. What you're telling me, you need certain facilities, but not the high cost
Correct.
hospitals that we are building all over the place.
That's correct.
And
And
let's
this is this
encourage
is this
the
is it.
private sector, and that's it.
Yeah.
So
If you look at
I think here what I would suggest. That's a fascinating what you call a business model to take care of the health needs of the citizens, and I think somebody should do it.
Well, what it
Somebody should
is
do
that
it.
the government, they did say in their manifesto, right, that they are going to look at a stroke care institution, right? They talked about stroke, right? And they use stroke, but remember, Sumat, we talked about a broader aspect to rehabilitation.
Yes.
What we said is they want to have an institution that manages stroke. So here you're going to build a building again. And what we were saying, so is that what happened is that when the person goes into the step down facility, my mother had a stroke. I'm telling you from my own personal experience. Once they go now into a step down facility and we can take care of that emergency period where you can suck them, turn them, clean them, prevent the bed sores now, then you don't need that facility again. And then we bring them home. Now, when you bring them home, you have to have a special bed, right? You have to make sure that the toilet is reasonable for those who can mobilize, but those who are completely immobile, they would need, care at home in a proper bed. They would need nurses to come and see them maybe once a week, and you can have like cheaper nurses called patient care assistants to stay with them during the day, right? So these are cheaper, lower cost than having them in a hospital bed for months where the relatives just come and see them visiting hours and they occupy a bed where you go in with your heart attack and then you go in an ICU, you get treated, and when you come now, you don't have a place to go back on the ward. They have you in the corridor because a patient is there who is supposed to be home or in a step-down center. So that is the problem. So the government did say that they want to do a stroke rehabilitation center.
No, but but that's just not going to replace what we have. That's just going to add to what
They're
we
just
have.
going to add more
But
burden to the health sector. Yes,
I'm
think that-
taking the cue. I'm taking the cue from what you said. That is far more expensive for the public health to provide the services that private.
Yes.
So I'm saying overall, a study needs to be done. What is the cheapest manner and more efficient manner?
Well, the
to
good thing about it is that the studies have been done. This is best practice all over the world. Now, then this is a standard healthcare. I mean, this is in the journals. There's evidence-based, right, discussions about what is needed to be done, and you see, you only get this if you actually do courses in university, go on your university library in healthcare management. Like me, I have an MBA in that. Nobody else there has that. So the thing about it is that when you read your journals, right, your every month you get your journals, you go back to university, you read what is happening in your journals, and you're seeing these things. It pains you to know that this is the best practice. You cut down on hospital time, you cut down on hospital costs, but then now you come to Trinidad and you say, well, do I build another building and start paying people overtime when they're on maternity leave? Then I have to pay them to stay home. And do you go and buy equipment that you have to check? No. So you come to the private sector, and you say to private sector investors, just like we have people in China and all of these things, right? So you come and you say, look, this is what we need. We need to have at least 400 beds outside there where we can have a step-down facility. You manage it. You charge us per patient, right? Because it is going to be cheaper to have those patients there just for a couple of weeks, maybe 4 or 5 weeks, after we remove them from the hospital, so my heart attack patients can survive, the younger ones who are capable of going back into community and working, rather than the 75 or the 85-year-olds occupying the bed, right? And if they could go to that facility, we will pay you for that at X dollars. And then after that now, the Ministry of Works, the Ministry of Housing get together and begin to retrofit that as part of the rehabilitation program, which they said in the manifesto, so that you now have a home care program aimed at developing and improving the homes where these people could go back home, and then you have the system where they could be treated at home until they pass.
You need social service involved too.
That's correct. So this is evidence based. This is what has to be done. So
Right,
rather
so-
than going back to build a building, which is what they
Dr.
want to do.
Ramrup, so right now, we are spending about 7 billion, that is government budget for the health sector, right?
Yeah.
7 billion. So let's say from an economic standpoint, assuming that the quality of healthcare improves, so the question arises, with the step down facilities, etc., then you'll have to know what are we going to do with the surplus buildings and hospital infrastructure that we have. We look at all of that, but the point remains, if we were to do that new model that you're talking about, how much would the budget be reduced by?
It will
You know?
reduce significantly, because one of the things that we have.
I know, but we can't
Yes.
say what I'm saying. The study has to be detailed enough to attract the government in such a manner, because government is under severe financial strain and it's not getting better.
All right. The international the data are there, right? Where we can pull the data, right, from other countries that have implemented the system. Canada is one. We have other countries in Europe, especially the Baltic countries, where we can say that a certain percentage of their GDP. You see, some of them spend 13-14% of their GDP on healthcare. We only spend about 3%. So the problem is that although you'll have to look at all those figures, but when you come back and you can get the data, we can actually show them that if you're spending X amount of money, right now in terms of tertiary healthcare, right? And I mean, everybody knows that. Even the minister knows that as a doctor. If you put more money into preventative medicine, right, in the primary healthcare system, you can reduce the amount of money spent in the tertiary and even the secondary healthcare system.
But preventative medicine is separate from what
Right.
we are talking
No,
about.
what we are talking about is rehabilitation, and I know that they have that. So yes, we can show them, right, that by introducing the home care rehabilitation program, and Suman,
Right.
when we had talked about it, we said we don't want it to stick just to strokes. We want rehabilitation to include, okay, you have a cesarean section, you can go home instead of spending time in the hospital, right? Because you can. You have, for example, a heart attack, right? In other words, then when you could go home with your heart attack and they will teach you how to get up and rehabilitate. You had surgery on the abdomen, big surgery. So you spend a certain time in hospital, yes, you can go back and we can show, and we have the data, we can go down into the data and show, and you could do the comparative analysis. You could probably use the statistical significant testing to make the, because of our difference in
Yeah.
infrastructure and
So,
whatever. You can make all of those calculations and you
yeah.
can say, well, look, yeah.
Dr. Ramlo, what you've introduced, I mean, I'm new to this, but what you're telling me that the government could save several $billion if we just remodel the
And
delivery of healthcare, right? And based on hard facts and examples from other countries, a good case can be made.
yes, you have
So
you have
I
you
think
have
Gary,
statistical and evidence-based analysis and studies
yeah,
that have
yeah.
been done, and we
So,
can show that. We can
so
demonstrate that.
what? So I'm appealing to Gary because Gary, the budget government will get a lot of problems raising revenues going forward, right? So if this could save a $2 billion is something they should
Well,
urgently look at.
here what. Let's have a meeting with ourselves offline, and we can sort out how we're going to write this up.
So,
And
Gary,
Yeah.
guys, one of the things that we had needed, Suman, remember, I don't know if Suman is still here, but
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
one of the things that we asked for in the beginning was, we said that, listen, there are certain data sets that have to be obtained by the ministers while they're doing their assessment, right? A lot of the data that we need, as you said, is to actually, is this Ved? Yes?
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
Dr.
Right,
Stephen,
good,
I'm
right.
here.
Sorry about that. I'm not seeing you, so I just got it going on your voice. So what it
Okay.
is that a lot of the data sets that we are talking about, it has to be pulled from all the RHAs, right? And in terms of what we are talking about specifically to save millions of dollars, even billions of dollars, I'm talking about, right, on an annual basis in terms of healthcare, because really and truly, every single day in an ICU in a hospital, it costs $300,000 to $400,000 for one patient. All right.
Mhm.
So if you can make the adjustments, you can save money. And if you can do that, we have it. But there are certain data sets that have to be, we have to know the throughput of everybody getting hospital. We have to know the average length of stay, which is the total patient days per patient in a hospital divided by the number of discharges. There are certain key metrics that we need to get from the current assessment of our healthcare system that allows us to drive this. For example, how long does it take for a person in ICU to stay in a hospital? So there are key data sets that will tell us where our sector is, right? Yes, we have quite a lot of stroke patients, and the point about it is we need to know how much. So we need to know the extent of the problem. So if I go to the private sector with all the arguments and I want to make my case, I have to say, well, look, we have 400 stroke patients in a hospital. They spend 15 days in all our tertiary centers on average. Then they spend another 20 days, right, in a step-down ward where they could actually go to another facility. Every single one of them on average is 20 days multiplied by how much patients in the country. We can actually multiply simply and say, well, if we can get them into the house with the Ministry of Social Services, with the Ministry of Housing and everything, doing a retrofitting, taking some of their budget and retrofitting some of these homes, we can actually save millions of dollars in hospitals, because we can actually take quarter of that and fix their homes so they could go home instead of staying in the hospital. But to do that, the ministers have to get these data sets. They need to send it to this team. We can sit down and work with it. We can pull the information, the studies, the articles, the evidence, the scientific evidence to back up our proposal, to show the government that they can save millions of dollars, right? It's because the amount of time a person spends in hospital is too much in this country right now. There are quite a lot of persons who should not be in hospital, and they are occupying beds in hospital, which is costing X amount per day. So that's a simple thing, and it can be done. All we need now is the data sets from the government to find out exactly where we are in the health sector. We have been asking that for what? Since June last year, we have been asking for that.
But one of the additional things I want to see taken care of is the access to family towards the patient, because it can help tremendously with with that patient care, and also the retrofitting is definitely something I support, because then again you're back in your house, you are emotionally secured by your family, and you have the visiting nurse where you need the nurse care, and that is something, I mean, cost effective, and it's also in the best interest of the patient. I
Yeah, it's
mean,
good. It's good for your palliative care, your cancer care, and everything else. And they get to die home with their relative. Listen, there are many benefits of having a person go
in their
home.
house,
Yes.
and I mean, I don't support the idea of putting somebody in an old age home and leave them there. I mean, that kind of destroys the minds a little bit. I mean, people needs to
Correct.
be within their home. They need to get the support within their home, and if we have to contribute a few dollars to make that happen, and that's the way we should go. I'm also concerned about the money. I think I was trying to find out before if we how we were going about this health surcharge, if we still doing it, or what are we doing?
But
Yeah, the health surcharge is still there.
if I may just endorse what Dr. was saying last year, right? I
I
have
mean,
a pretty
is it still
good
in the system? I'm not sure. I'm
Yes,
not
no,
sure
no.
now.
It's in the system. It's still there. It's still there.
So,
yeah.
so the
But it
thing
doesn't
about it
go.
is
It doesn't
the
go.
health
It doesn't go
surcharge.
towards the health sector at all.
Yeah, so
It
that's
goes
something
into
we
a
need to
part.
fix. And what we can have a discussion with the country is to we could increase the surcharge to accommodate certain levels of accommodation and resources if we need be, but that must go towards what it's saying it's being raised for. So
Yeah.
that's another discussion we take in a few years and say, well, listen, we need the funding, to accommodate advancing the level of service delivery towards the health sector for patients, and not that the government leaves it in a place where it goes elsewhere and the money, is not well spent. So we have to clarify that's another step. That's something I want to see we go in that direction. In that you have the ambulance care. I mean, over here in the States we pay for it, but the fact that we get that service. You
Yeah.
know.
There are a number of things that we have to look at. There's a global argument amongst healthcare practitioners, management practitioners right now. I mean, if you look at the Harvard Business Journal, some of the guys are, the medical journals, some of the guys are saying that, okay, we have a problem. The government of Trinidad and Tobago is looking at possibility going with health insurance, right, in the future. And this is what we're talking about: removing the health
Okay, so
surcharge
then
and
that's
having
going to be a government deducted health
right.
insurance.
So you have an insurance premium that you'll be paying, and that goes towards the
Okay,
healthcare, right? So in other
okay, so
words, and
then right.
that is something that is highly possible, but it has to be managed properly because it has
Yes.
failed in the US. You have quite a lot of uninsured and underinsured in the US. It has failed in Canada to a large extent because you still have people waiting months and years for surgery, long waiting times in emergency rooms, right? It has only worked well, for example, in the Scandinavian countries, the Baltic countries, where they spend almost 13 to 14% or even more on their GDP and healthcare, right? So it's really a real argument that they have in the international circle
How it is
as to
managed
whether or
is
not
what's
the
going to be the
insurance,
key thing. How
yeah,
is it
whether or not the
managed?
insurance premium will actually work. You see, so in Trinidad and Tobago, we are lucky that so far we have been able to fund healthcare. But I think what Ved and I are pretty much in agreement with, and this has always been my case, because it has been very hard to explain the business process, right, to healthcare practitioners, management boards, as well as government, and some of the permanent secretaries. When I was in ODPM, is the same damn shit I had, where you go to the ministry and you're saying, listen, it is better for me to lease a vehicle, right, in the in the disaster management in ODPM, it is better for me to lease a vehicle because when a disaster is happening, I can go to the leasing company and I can get 10 more. Whereas if I have to buy a vehicle and something happens with that damn vehicle, I have no vehicle. You see? So I go to the hospital now and I said, look, you have your CT scan machine. Right now it's always down. The one in San Fernando is not working. So you have to go to Point. Patients from San Fernando have to be sent to Point. When I was medical director there in 2009, I said to everybody, I said, listen, in hospital, every day, you have 15 cases that needs to have a CT scan done. 15 people as emergencies. When we looked at the clinics, you have 20 requests for CT scans from the clinic. These are elective CT scans. So why not go to the private sector? Bring Gulview, Surgimed, San Fernando Medical, all the different medicals with CT scans. Because they have their workers, they have their staff, they have everything. We don't have to pay people for that. Our machine always breaking down because it's overworked. Good? And it's not properly maintained. So, and you have to pay people overtime and all this other
I
so
more believe in the lack of proper maintenance.
Right.
Go ahead.
So the fact is that you had the demand for emergencies within the hospital was in excess of what the machine could have provided. But clearly you were doing elective ones too. So you was balancing it, putting the emergencies at risk, right? So my suggestion was very simple. If you go to the private sector, you can outsource this damn thing at an agreed price. Good. Set up a set of contractual agreements. Make sure you have your deliverables. Monitor and manage your deliverables. And you say, okay, a CT scan right now costs about $1,500, right? If you can give me that CT scan for $800 or $900, I can assure you that I am, based on my data, I am getting 20 per week, right? You get 5 Gulview, you get 5 San Fernando.
Well, if you're buying it volume too, Doc, so you can buy it at a bargain, right?
Right. So you sit down there and you say, look, I'm giving you X amount of dollars. This is my bargain. This is what. You do that for dialysis. You do that for CT scan, MRI scans. And therefore, you put less burden on the machine at hospital. And therefore, your hospital will deal with the emergencies and you outsource the damn elective ones. Then you come to your doctors now and you say, heads of department, this is what I want you to do. We need to go now with the senior radiologists and monitor the requests of all those MRI scans for the past 6 months and see out of the 400 requests, how many actually needed the damn thing, right? And my suggestion is that let the specialist medical officer sign the request for the MRI rather than the junior doctors. When you had interns ordering MRIs, you see, you had junior doctors ordering MRIs. Now that should not happen, right? The specialists should have ordered it because they were the ones who assessed the patient. Because the MRI is not a diagnostic tool, it's supportive of a diagnosis already made. You see? So the point I'm making is that there are certain resources that could be outsourced and managed rather than putting a burden on the hospital, because the cost of hospital care is higher than the cost of getting that same service privately. It can save the government millions of dollars by just a simple understanding. But what it needs is proper management of those contractual agreements to ensure that the deliverables are in keeping with the accreditation standards required for your patients. Do you understand? So this is where management and proper qualified and competent managers become. If you don't have that politically and you put a CEO who don't have the damn understanding of this shit, and the managers who are there politically appointed, right, and medical directors who are just there because they're politically appointed, what you have is that nobody can manage this thing and it breaks down. So you have price gouging and all kind of nonsense. So you see, you have to look at all of the angles that I'm talking about in order to save money. And this is where we need to sit down and look at a comprehensive restructuring of the health sector and the management of the health sector.
Gary, guys, I have to leave now, but
okay, we'll continue discussion another day.
Very interesting. Thanks, Dr. Amrup. I think You have to have a financial view on all these things.
Yeah.
For the simple reason the government don't have the money like before, and so much.
Yes.
Hello?
Okay, take care then. I'll
All
Okay,
right,
sign
okay.
off.
Dr.
Okay,
Miraj,
Ned, you want to hear?
Ken, Suman. Yes, so Ved,
Okay,
we'll
Ned.
pick up. We'll be in touch.
Yeah,
Okay.
take
Okay,
care
Vid. Nice.
and good
Nice
night.
talking to you.
Good
Happy
night.
New Year, guys. Happy New
Yeah,
Year.
happy New Year. Yeah,
Hey, Ved,
Okay.
maybe someday
Yeah.
during the week you could come back.
yeah.
We
Yeah,
we could
All
I'm
right,
we
then
could
here
doing
we
that
arrange
go.
now.
we could arrange to have a chat maybe offline,
Yeah.
and we could discuss what you're saying, because I'm very interested in assisting and getting that. We could save the government millions of dollars, right?
Right, so
Just by
let's
giving
do
them
that.
the current contemporary best practice in terms of what we talked about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay,
Right.
good night, everyone.
Good night,
Okay.
Ned.
Good night,
So,
V.
so let me ask
Yeah.
you, so let me get into this conversation because I think I myself want to leave a little bit. So, Dr. Ramrup, I heard everything you said tonight. It sounds really good on paper. And I don't know why the government can't go through on these things. They should. So, here's what I'm thinking about, because the other night I mentioned that the police service is, I said the police service is selling protection and the public is buying protection. So we could go with that in a different way. So in the same way, the people buying healthcare and people in the healthcare department, like yourselves, are selling healthcare. So you and Ned were ending correctly just now when you talked about the money side of it. And that is what I was interested in, because you're now getting to what I was thinking all along. So it's money is not, I think you said it just now, but I want to put it this way. Because you did mention that.
I'm getting a kind of scratching noise. I don't know from who, but it's. I will ask you guys to mute until you're ready to speak. Go ahead, Dr. Miraj.
Right. Okay, better now. Okay, here. So so if I mean, Dr. Amr said that that is cheaper in the private enterprise than in the government enterprises per dollar expense per patient care. If that's the case, then why not privatize the hospitals? So that will lead to a different. We know what number of problems that will
We
lead
we
to.
had That is a very good.
Or you could
But
encourage
hold on,
private
let
enterprise.
me finish. You'll take over when I'm done, because I'm only making these points and I will listen to you all after. So ask a patient if money is not the issue, which hospital would you prefer to go? Let's say the one in St. Clair, which may be a competitor to the Port of Spain General. The patient might say, well, St. Clair. And then if that's the case, then the people from Port of Spain General Hospital ask the question, so what are we doing wrong that these people are choosing to go there and not coming here? Why can't we be as good as them or better than them so we can attract the customers here rather than the hospital? Because that is all that is what Dr. Arnold was saying for all tonight, and he's laying out how to do it and how we could get it done. That is what you're spending these hours telling us about. The bottom line is, can we do better with the current resources? And your answer is yes. Because you're saying that therefore there's a lot of losses along the way, that inefficiencies are breeding everywhere. And therefore we have to stop these. So if you could have done this, and whoever were in charge of the hospitals, when you were running the hospitals, they back you in a corner and bring their own people in, because you know what? Inefficiency is a level of tolerance that people in Trinidad will prefer to tolerate than to be efficient. So a level of inefficiency you have to tolerate if you want to carry out your agenda. And I guess your agenda would be stretching 5 years and 10 years and 15 years. You have to drop all the theories that you have and all the things that you hope to practice and would be the best, but your best will not be good enough, because your best will take you out of election. I said this already in the past. So just like how the PNM have to live at a level of inefficiencies for them to win the next election, you have to do the same thing. You must tolerate a level of inefficiency to win the next election. Because there's no sense you go all nice things you're doing on paper, and it might very well work for the best. We know it is the best, but it is the most palatable? Is it the best in the scenario you are dealing with a country like Trinidad and Tobago? Many times I talk to all of you. I talked about what happens in third first world countries. We can't compare it. We are at a different ball game. We have to deal with reality. And all the things you are saying tonight, I listen to you all. It is make a lot of sense, but we cannot get it done. And that is why I'm going to leave it with you to find out how can we implement this. Because maybe we could give people money and say, okay, pick your own health. So we privatize the two hospitals and say, people, here's the spending money, the same 15%, whatever 3% budget on the GDP. We give it to the people based on some kind of need basis, and let them spend wherever they want to, which hospital they want to go to. That could be a solution, because the nice thing that you all are mentioning within the government setup, that cannot happen. You saw what happened just now with the hospital, with the Cuba hospital. The trade union people jumping up and down, want to strike. They want to do. You're going to have real problems in doing these kinds of things. So all these are great. I don't know what the answer is. I could raise more questions, but the bottom line is money counts. Money is the first thing. If you can get real return on our dollars, that is what we're looking for, and that's what the customers are looking for. If you look at the chats, the people in the chat, that's exactly what they're saying. Why I couldn't get A, B, and C from my hospital? Why couldn't I get this done? Somebody asking them, why don't we have a snack it? All kinds of things, a snack, some kind of bar, so I could go and eat while I'm waiting for the patient. Because I wait 8 hours to get some kind of test or the other, 10 hours, and while I'm waiting there, my mother is in there. I have to get something. I don't know. I used to have people outside selling things in the stores. I don't know what they have now, but that used to be the case before. So I don't have an answer to all it, but I listen to what you all are saying, and it's making a lot of sense. But you cannot get it done. Please try. You cannot get it done. You have to eventually allow a level of slackness. By slackness, I mean laziness, unproductivity in the system to get it done, because you have to carry out this thing 10, 15, and 20 years. And therefore, all of these things, Dr. Ramo, when you get in there, I hope you get in there, you got to temper it down a bit. You got to temper it down. Go ahead.
Well, I agree. And the thing about it is that the whole problem, it's a cultural problem. And where we had the problem is that, okay, let us say that I started when I was medical director in 2008, right, when I started, and I worked till 2011 when I went to ODPM. And in those 2.5, 3 years when I was medical director, a lot of what we are talking about, right, was, first of all, we wanted to start to measure the practice that the doctors were giving, right? A lot of people were using, as I told you, I'll give you the example of the guy with the 100 surgeries. He was counting the 100 surgeries as a performance indicator, right? As an indicator of performance. And it couldn't be, because really and truly, it was not how much surgery it did, but whether the 100 patients were living a reasonable life after the surgery. You see, it wasn't really that. And the only way you knew that is if you did an MBA in healthcare management, where you understood what you really are measuring in healthcare, right, to improve healthcare. It was not the number of cases that you do. And we're talking about so much billions of dollars spent in healthcare, right? Listen to this. The public service and a private hospital, when you go to get a doctor in a private hospital and get surgery or deliver a baby and thing, who you go to see? Do you go to see the nurse, the attendant, the owner of the hospital, the car park attendant? You go and see a specialist.
This is not a revenue exercise. If this works as intended, the government is going to collect less, because there will be less filing.
Specialists. You go into a specialist unit under the care of Dr. Ramroop, and Dr. Ramroop will take care of you with his doctors. The next day is Dr. Juman, and the next day is Dr. X, and whatever. So each day, there's a doctor who is in charge of that unit. And when you go on that day as an emergency, or electively, you go under Dr. Ramrup on that day in his clinic and you are admitted to the ward for his treatment. So you have, let us give an example, a simple way to save money and to get back money in the system, right? Very simple, Suman. Look at this. As medical director, I had 100 specialists. And those 100 specialists are supposed to work 28 hours per week, right? They are therefore supposed to be providing 2,800 hours of specialist service, right? I can tell you for sure that I was only getting about 800 hours of specialist service. You know why?
But you're paying
Because
for 28
some
hours.
persons came 8 o'clock and left at 10. Some people didn't come, right? Whether they were on call or not. So you were not getting 2,800 hours of specialist service per week.
But
Now,
you're paying for that.
2,800 hours of specialist service equates to better health
Well,
care.
Michelle, there's a carnival inside.
Patients will stay less time on the ward, right? They'll be able to track down. You come on the ward in the morning, they do a blood test for you. Do you know that nobody is going to see that blood test until the next morning on the ward room? What about if you had the patient who they were supposed to be in hospital from 8 to 4, the specialist is there doing his hours, he checks the result in the afternoon or the evening when it comes back from the lab, and then he discharges you, so you spend one night less. You understand what I'm saying? So these are some of the things that they have to streamline. The Ministry of Health and the RHAs have to begin to, first of all, document the processes. Then they have to streamline the processes. Then they have to sit down with the doctors and get more specialist hours in the hospital. Now, as Mr. Maraj is saying, Dr. Maraj, it is something that when I tried to do it rapidly in my time, I got literally kicked out. I mean, they didn't renew my contract. I wasn't fired. But obviously, the guys were kicking off us because they didn't want to measure practice. They wanted to keep the status quo. And that status quo remained under the PNM until now. Right? So now UNC comes and says, okay, listen, I have to save money. I have to get back money. So listen, in 2,800 hours in each one of the RHAs, you're in a big hospital, I want you to work maybe an extra 500 hours per week. Oh God, at least give me that time or more. And then you start measuring your practice and saying, well, does that mean I can reduce the amount of discharges? I can have better specialist care afforded to patients. I will reduce lawsuits because I am now having a specialist on the ward talking to the patient, signing the consent form, doing the damn surgery instead of the junior doctors. You understand? Less risk of botching the surgery because I have the specialist who is really the specialist doing the surgery rather than the junior doctors who are now learning the surgery, doing the surgery. So clearly you're reducing your risks. Clearly you have more specialist time per patient, which is the same thing. In the nursing home, you have more specialist time per patient. That is why you spend less time. You know, although the fees might be exorbitant for you, you might think, is that if you really think about the fees that you're spending, you multiply that 10 times in hospital, because in hospital, they don't care about the money you're spending because there's no money passing. It's just our money, taxpayers' money, which you're spending willy-nilly, you see? So I think that Dr. Maraj is correct in a way that if even they say, Doc, well, I'll give you the job as director of health, which I doubt very much, and they say, okay, you go in and on, I still have to report to a CEO who is political. I still have to report to a board that is political. So clearly they're going to be politically correct, and they will say, no, don't interfere with nobody now, because if you do that, it's real trouble. We mightn't get vote back in. You understand? So right away, the status quo will remain, and you know, I mean, we know what needs to be done, but it's going to take some time. And
It
if
comes
we
back
don't,
to what I was saying. We can only go
Well, I have
sideways.
to, on that part, I have to disagree with Dr. Maraj because I work to change the status quo, and I want the status quo change, and I demand the status quo change, and I know we're capable of changing the status quo.
we have to. His proposal.
Otherwise, I have to forget about Trinidad totally, and don't even think about Trinidad. If
Gary,
we're not going to work to change the status quo, I don't want nothing to do with politics.
We suggested, and I think that Dr. Maraj has a very, I mean, we suggested, I remember, Samant, when we talked about it, we said, let us use Kuva Hospital, right, the Children's Hospital, as an example where we privatize that service. If we are going to spend X $100 million on that facility, let us hire, right, with a proper
Management
contract, all the
contract.
deliverables, a private entity. Let them hire the doctors, let them hire the radio or whatever. Use the equipment and everything, manage it, maintain it and everything, and charge the government a certain amount of money and manage it effectively, and show the rest of the health sector in Trinidad and Tobago, in the public health sector, that you could do it almost like a West Shore or Sinclair. You know what? If they do that, then you can begin to privatize, which they did. They did privatize the emergency health services, which is the ambulance services, right? But they have not been able to monitor the quality assurance indicators, and they have not been. Their responsibility as the government in the last 10 or 15 years was to train up the emergency medical technicians from basic, intermediates to paramedic. So that, and once you go paramedic, you have to improve the services on the ambulances with new equipment, technology. Now with IT, you have to, from the time you do an ECG in a man's house, you're going straight back to the emergency room, and the doctors in casualty looking at it real time. So they could advise the paramedic what to do, save the man's life, bring him back to hospital, and then take him straight to the cath lab. You want to set up a cath lab, then you have to do those. So you see, there are other things that have to be done. So if you want to privatize the emergency health sector, you have done a sole bidder for the last 15 years or 20 years in this country, one sole ambulance provider. You mean to say that in this whole world, right, that we can't throw the bid to other people and improve the service that we currently have? Why it is you have one person doing this all the time? Come on, GMRTT, are they so damn good? And no, the answer no. We have to have different persons bidding for the contract. And when they bid for the contract, you have a medical director, a chief medical officer who is not a manager. You have permanent secretaries in the Ministry of Health who are not managers. Who is managing that emergency health service provider?
But Doc, also you have PNM permanent secretary there, right?
Correct. Well, we talked about
and we have PNM people bullying UNC to hold position, right? And we cannot allow. You see, in order for me to fix the system, right, you have to remove those who want to hold the status quo, and mostly those that PNM.
Well, you see,
and that is the way we have to deal with it. Is to kick them out.
Yeah. I send Gary out.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
exactly.
so, yeah.
Exactly. And whoever encouraging that, since we're on the topic, they better stop it, because we're going to raise hell from this end. Right now, we're going soft, where it's going to get worse if they continue bringing PNM people in position.
I
intend to raise hell.
I catch my ass and paying buses and paying people to go to meeting and hosting meetings in my house for years. And it have people who, just come on a platform for 3 months and they have big positions as ministers and in this government.
And bring in the friends and family and associate. As far as I am concerned, and I'm saying it here, I consider the PNM an enemy of the people, an enemy of my party. They have done nothing more than to humiliate and to destroy our country. They wasted our treasury, and they encourage a lot. They had open borders. They had our people in jeopardy. And I cannot compromise. There is no compromise with me with the PNM, and this nonsense better stop.
Yeah, we have to really,
exactly what you're saying.
So you see the point, Dr. Maharaj? In order to change the status quo, we have to get rid of those who were in the system because of the system that maintained the status quo.
Yeah.
I think a lot more.
I just telling you, Gary, that your 5 years is the only 5 years good for you.
No, I understand your point, but what I'm saying to you is, I got into this politics to uproot and capsize and renew and build. I ain't here to compromise. I am not here to play nice with the enemy. I am on a vicious mission based on what I see, and I support this party in that context that we come to clean house. And we must clean house. And if we don't clean house and we start to compromise with the enemy, Dr. Rambo is a surgeon. And and in surgery, you had to cut out the bad part. Okay? If you want to live.
We're not talking about cleaning house here. We're talking about the way forward, the best way forward.
Well, no, there's no compromise. We cannot compromise with the enemy, and we need to stop that.
Gary,
We have
if
to
I may,
uproot. We have to uproot from a side. Clean house.
yeah, if I may interject a little bit, Gary, there's validity in what Dr. Maharaj is saying, eh? But the thing is that we need very, very strong leadership to clean house from the beginning. That's what they're
No,
doing
but
here.
those who are encouraging the prime minister to compromise, we need to call them.
That's right, because they changed staff basically immediately, you know. Look
Yeah,
at
when
what
PNM come to clean house, remember Petro Singh?
I can
Petrotrin is where it at because it was discrimination and we didn't focus on capabilities and abilities, right? That's why it ended up where it is there.
Listen, that's a correct way to do it. Rowley closed down the Ministry of Tobago Development the first month he came in office in 2015. Closed down the Ministry of Tobago Development. So the same way he did it in that short space of time, our leadership in this case is still have the CEOs and various CEOs in there, you know, under the PNM, still at their office right now. The year is going to be past just and April comes soon. After Carnival, you swim turn make two turns, April as well. And they still have CEOs, you know, Central and everybody else. They still
So man, fix your mic.
collecting big salaries, you know. And what is it?
Look, we saw it, right? We saw it with CPEP. We saw it with every agency. I mean, in fact, Dr. Gopi Singh experienced a hell of a lot of corruption there with the money, how it's been distributed, money that could have been better used. We are demanding value for money, and the only way we can get value for money is to send everybody associated with the PNM to hell.
Correct. That has to be done. But that should have been done 6 months, 7 months, 8 months ago. One time. Let them know what you stand for. You know?
Every man in every position there has to go straight to hell out of the government. We in charge now, and we have to be in charge. We have a lot of UNC people who can do the job better.
Now, we know this is our first year in government, and we always make the point, the first and the fifth year, there's little or nothing, no new introduction of anything. So you have 3 years to implement and do what you have to do. Year 2, year 3, and year 4. Now, year 1 is, for us, I think it's gone. What new systems are in place?
You guys know footy well the reason we're having much more struggles is because of those who are still in place should have gone out the door.
Absolutely. That's my point. That is exactly my point. And what are the, you know, performance? Who is measuring their performance? They're doing nothing, collected big salaries, big gratuities, big pensions, no assessment. Let's just listen to what Dr. Gopi Singh is saying and you'll get an idea. Has anyone been held for these inefficiencies? Nobody is held for these things. So we need to get rid of these guys ASAP. ASAP, man. Because if we want to win an election, is either you do what Dr. Maharaj is saying, you do nothing because you have to wait and don't disturb the status quo, or if you want to improve the system.
But if we don't disturb the status quo, then we didn't do what we said we were supposed to do, and then
That's
people
right.
will call me
That's
out on that.
correct.
Okay,
That's
so
correct.
we have to uproot the status quo and capsize the house and mash up and renovate where we need to do, because we have people in the UNC that are a hell of a lot better in capabilities and performance.
All right. Now we're hitting into some serious problem. This is the way to do it, but in some instances, the same PNM guys are still occupying positions. You see what's happening to Angus Stewart
Let me
right
tell
now?
you something. You see, if those around the prime minister don't have the testicular fortitude, I have it.
I'm sure, but
okay.
As I said, Dr.
So they better get their act together.
It's very valid. You know, I'm scared about that. I'm really scared about that. By doing the right thing, you lose election. That happened to the Naro in '86. When the Kennedy tried to change, you know, pay public servants with bonds and so on. Hey, nobody wanted that. So you lost the election and trying to do the right thing. So what is going to happen at this round is that by introducing efficiencies in the systems, you're going to get a better delivery of whatever you say, healthcare, education, roads and infrastructure, blah, blah, blah. But are you going to win an election like that? No. So there's a fine line. There's a fine line of how much new innovation you can bring in and how much the public is willing to accept. So it's as much as a social problem to deal with as well as an economic problem.
Gentlemen, we have people out of the century that prominent people who have one foot on one side and the other foot on the other side and playing both sides, right? Okay, I don't need people like that around me. All right, I don't want to see nobody like that around our government. All right, you're either with us or you're against us. All right, this is war. After all what I've seen the PNM done to our people, especially in the last 10 years, where I personally experienced the cries of my people, I am not putting up with any compromise with the PNM. The PNM is an enemy, and they must be treated as such, and we must get rid of the enemy.
But Gary, this has nothing to do with the enemy. What I'm talking about is I understand the status quo and all of that, and we don't want the status quo. But if we don't change the status quo in a limited quantity such that the population can bear, it will come back to haunt you. And that means that just like the NR or the UNC of 2010, 2015, your days are numbered.
Doc, some people will say PNM, you see, PNM and UNC is the same thing. And they see the PUNC say they're going to do this, and look what they do. They keep this and they keep that. We have to maintain the course. We have to deliver what we said we're going to do, and we have to do it effectively. And we're not lacking capability. We in the UNC, the house is full. The house of the UNC is full of highly qualified people. The best lawyers in the country, the most intelligent lawyers in the country is in the house in the UNC. Check the doctors too. Dr. Ramrup is here.
Yeah, but who is listening to Dr. Ramrup? Who is listening to Gary? Who is listening to Dr. Maharaj? Who is listening to Samantha, Ken, or whoever it is? You see, this is the thing. There is an agenda. And the agenda starts with the head, the minister of the various ministries. They have to drive the process. And if they don't, or they don't have the ability to drive the process,
they better drink some things to strengthen their back. They better go and get some sea moss or Guinness or whatever they have to get.
Pacro in Tobago. By the way, there's an election happening tomorrow in Tobago. THA election. So we have to monitor that.
So tomorrow,
well.
right. Tomorrow will have be the first. Tomorrow will be the first test to see how far are we on the right track or not. And no meaning on the right track, meaning in terms of public opinion. I'm not talking about, like I always said, that you all have the best ideas and everything, and Dr. Ramo had the best idea. All that is excellent. And the OI fellas and the Causeway fellas and all of you guys here, you have all the right, everything perfect. But this is not a perfect place you're dealing with. You're dealing with many intricacies of inefficiencies that you have to tolerate if you want to win the next election. You see what happened with the drivers doubling of the fare. What the UNC lost is that they didn't go down to the grassroots and have a feeling among them, their constituents. What do you all think about this? What do you all think? Find out first, and then you could know how to play this game. You went straight and implemented, and then find out from the public. Oh shit, it was harder than I thought, because you didn't find out from your people, your own people. Find out from your party branch. Find out from the county councils. What you all think about this? How you feeling? Then when the PNM started to attack you, you had no grounds. You had a backpack. They had to send the minister up into the open to soften the situation. And it ain't go away yet. They're still saying this government is draconian. They say one thing, and just like the PNM, they're doing the other thing. Just like the PNM. So the
Exactly
guys
the
who
point they're
sitting,
making. Is
you see
exactly the
some of
point
you
they're
talk,
making.
so some of you talk about 1 foot there, 1 foot there. We have many people 1 foot there, 1 foot there. I could pull my foot out of the PNM and remain with you and see, or could drag my foot back into the PNM and stay there. It's not much, but it's a few. And I think I can always talk about the marginal constituencies. There are many people in those marginals who are 1 foot there and 1 foot there. And if you mess around too much, I'll put the foot where I had it all the years gone by. So they're prepared to give you another chance, but you can't mess around. And although you're not messing around, you're not conveying the message properly. You didn't get your party branch to stand up with you to argue in the down in the gutter to say what the changes are making double define. What do you all think? You set up a system to charge people, and I had to wait 1 month for a windshield wiper, but you want me to get it in 7 days. I can't get it. I'd be trying. The wiper will take me 2 weeks. My tire, my smooth tire. I have an order in. I get in it 3 months from now, or whatever. Your system does not allow for these kinds of things. You want to implement draconian measures, but you don't have the things in place. You all have to criticize your own party because you want to win the next election. That is why I'm angry. I'm not angry because they're doing mess. I'm angry because they're not doing some of the variables that has to be done. Yeah, you have to fight a war because so we in war. We don't. You're good for 5 years, sir. After 5 years, forget it. You're only good for 5 years. If you don't look this on the long term, you have to have your finger in the wind. Wet your finger up in the wind and see where the wind is blowing, because that's the only way to win the next one. That is why I lost the election after 5 years. That is why the PNM will always come back, because they put their finger in the wind and they didn't know where it is blowing. So you have to win the next election. Everything, all is the great thing Ramrook talked about. Dr. Ramrook was talking, excellent, very good. I listened to him for an hour tonight. Excellent. But where do we go from here? We clean house. Yeah, clean. You all go tired clean house. You go be next election come around, you're still cleaning because you want a clean house. Forget the clean house. Get the damn thing done. Get the message across. Get your people buying first. There are many UNC people I heard grumbling about this is not right. This is wrong. We voted for them, but look what they're doing.
Yeah, well, exactly. But what I'm saying that you
If
have
your
to
own
clean
people turning
house.
against you, that's the end of you.
Yeah, the fines, the draconian measure that the fines is totally unacceptable. I already called that out. But the fact is, because you see, we have a lot of people who was economically, financially destroyed by the last 10 years of the PNM. So they not know their income cannot even handle that. So we were wrong in that aspect to increase those fines in such an exorbitant a number, and that is totally ridiculous. I think those who advise the prime minister on that is out of place and has jeopardized the government, and we need to retract on that and change our approach on that part of it. There is no room here for increasing exorbitant amount of money on the population. That is totally unacceptable. All right.
Yeah, something has to be done concerning that. Public opinion is says a lot. And I think that is what Dr. Maharaj is getting at. You don't want to antagonize the population to such an extent that they turn against you, even though you're doing the right thing.
But Suman, that fine to that extent cannot be the right thing, because we campaign stating that we understand the difficulties of the people and their financial distress. So to advise the prime minister to go in that direction is totally unacceptable.
Whoever did that advice is totally wrong. Did they do their homework? Did they go to the constituencies and get the endorsement?
You see, guys, it comes back to what we had said earlier. Right now, the UNC party is the UNC government. Right? The NATEX is government. Right? We asked for a think tank. Right? We said we want to have the opportunity to build a team of advisors, so we could advise the current government, which happens to be the current UNC party because the whole of NATEX got put in government.
There's nobody
They,
in
they,
that right now.
they have put a lot of counselors now who are counselors, they put them on boards, right? So the counselors have two responsibilities. They're on the boards as well as they on the ground, right? So they have so much things to do now. So they have other things to do. You see, so you're putting your party, right, and your politicians in your party in government. So the UNC, and this is why when I went with Vasant, we were trying to say that you have to create and institutionalize the UNC. You have to have a party. The party is not just for elections. So when you don't have a party and you put your party itself, your NATEX and your whole administration in government, then you don't have a party. So in other words, then your focus, and this is what Dr. Maharaj is, and we had said this before, which is in agreement with him, is that you're not looking at sustainability of the party. You're trying now, the party is making decisions for government, and this is they can't go back to the grassroots because they never had an institution. Right, the marginal seats were all created when they have the marginal, the activists, for example, when the marginal seats, they have the party groups and whatnot. During governance, we don't go back to them. We don't go back and sit down and say, okay, we still have to fight. We have to continue our campaigning in the marginals because it's the marginals that we win or lose. And this is the point. And this is what Ken and we are always saying. So that your party has to continue its party management, its party strategy to sustain government. So therefore, if you have a party with an independent party, with an independent strategic team in the party, we are members of the party. Why it is that we're not on that strategic team? Why it is that we can't advise the government and say, look, these are the indicators that you have to maintain to sustain government for 5, 10, 15 years. And therefore, one of the things that you're doing now in terms of those fees, we don't mind that you do them, but to do it, there are certain things that have to be in place. You have to go down to your party groups. You have to have some consultation, just like you did prior to the election when you had your focus groups and your meetings and your town meetings and your Monday night forum and all of those other things. This is where you begin to start of explain these things and phase them in. All right. I mean, as Dr. Maharaj is saying, if I go straight in and start changing the health sector as the minister, first of all, I have a strike, and then the next 3 days I'm gonna have everybody down in twos, and then everybody would hate me, and then you lose trust, and so the timing is important. So if you had a party and you had an institution, then it doesn't come together just for elections, and that is the weakness of the UNC. You bring up your party comes together for elections. After elections, when you win the elections, right? But then you're stronger when you're in opposition because when you're in opposition, you have more Monday night forum and you have more meetings with your party groups and whatever. But when you're in government, you're forgetting your people, and once you forget your grassroots,
Right.
you will lose the election. You will lose it
Right.
again because your own people will get
Right.
turned off. Right? Remember, the PNM just
Exactly.
didn't come out to vote. When they come back out to vote for Penny Beckles in the next election, then we would have to have our people to come out to
Right.
match that. If we
Right.
don't have that party support and you don't
5
build that
years.
support right now, you're not going to sustain government. All the good things you do it. So we have had all of these discussions, and what Dr. Maharaj is saying is that there are management strategies that have to be implemented in rolling out any program, right? Sudden change has always been in all forum, in all workshops, in all the literature, in all the scientific and social literature. Anytime you impose rapid change, you have more effects that are negative.
Precisely.
Change has to come in a managed way. You have
Right.
to have buy-in. You have to have facilitation. There are techniques
Right.
that have to be used.
Yeah, but Doc, I mean,
Yeah.
common sense will tell you that that exorbitant amount of fee with a population that is how to say their income is very low at this point. A lot of people lost their business. A lot of people struggling. You campaign on the fact that you was going to do something about that, and then you drop this exorbitant amount of fee on the people I
Yeah.
mean,
But
that is
you
common
see,
sense to tell you that's a bad thing to do.
so Gary, one of the things, even if we were to go back a little step further, right, and don't even get there yet, right? If PNM, right, and their team, their public image team and their marketing team, as the case with me, and they could actually go back, right, and get videos where the honorable prime minister is saying, "I would not raise fees," right, and start showing that to the public. Why it is that the UNC people couldn't go back and get those videos? You see? In other words, then what I'm trying to say is that before you make statements and you do things, you have to research and go back and see what. Listen, that's how a cricket team understands it. That's how Australia beaten West Indies like crazy, because they go back and check all the players, they check their weaknesses, they know how to bowl them, and they get them out because they have science behind the management. So you have a UNC party that is going to do an action, right? And don't go back and research to see if you are contradicting what you're saying by imposing that right away. In other words, then the whole public relations and research and develop the research department in terms of the what they're doing, they fail in because they're not. It's just like the PNM is going to use that to make the prime minister look bad, because here it is, she comes on a platform and says, "I will not do this," and then what this month she do it right away. So the thing is, she looks bad, and people begin to lose trust, including your own. So it therefore means that they have to strengthen the party itself. They have to do a lot of research before they make certain changes. Although we need it, but they have to do these things, like you're saying, Gary, and they
But
must do
Doc,
things.
again, I
The
know we
third
had to do
thing.
research, but this alone is a given. That alone is a given to make that a kind of decision. Who
Yeah.
advised the
So
prime minister? Wrong.
if the PNM could retrieve those videos, right? Why it is that the UNC could not have got those videos and see that if the prime minister come out and say, "I'm going to do this," and 6 months, 3 months before the election, then you have to patch up now and say, "Oh well, I have to do that now because we didn't have all the data at hand when we were saying that." You know how foolish that
Or
sounds? Yeah.
or you do it in a phase basis over
Yes.
time, like
Yes.
that.
I mean, this is what I said. There's a method to some of the things that we have to do, but I agree with Sumant. There are certain people who are still in ambassadorial positions, high commissioner positions. There are certain people still running the government right now who are politically appointed that has to be moved. There are certain CEOs still holding on to some of the RHAs, and a couple of people, they are still hired and they have to move, right? So there are certain people just have to get out, and they're still there. So certain things have to be done drastically, and certain things have to be done phased. And I agree with Gary. The PNM people who are there now, who are in positions of high authority, have to be removed one way or the other. Just like they removed us when they came in.
Within the first month, man.
Yeah.
Clean house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let the chips fall where they may.
But I have to say that.
So we beat them up. We beat them up, and we want to kiss and make up and tell them we're sorry.
Yeah. And not only that, we hug them and we say, "Come on board, man. Come on board and help us, man. Come on board and help us, and you help us because you have the skill and competency to do it. We have people, but they're not as good as you."
These people in power for the past 70 years, Gary.
Yeah.
You're dealing with an institution like Dr. Ramo always said, this is their institution. They believe they have a right to rule.
Yeah.
I said the other day, you all have to work twice as hard to reach half the distance. You have to double up. You have to quadruple up. You doubling up means not enough. You have to work twice as hard to go half the distance. The PNM have it in a platter. You don't have it on a platter. You have to earn it. You have to still have to earn it, Gary. You could, talk to me 15 years from now, and I can say, okay, let's throw our ass out, tell them all one left, right, and center.
War is a chess game. War is a chess game, right? You have to put your people strategically in place quickly when you're fighting war. Otherwise, you lose that damn battle.
We're not talking about that part. We're talking about the part
that is the exact point.
We're not talking about that part. We're talking about how you get your engine running and you have it smooth running. That is a part of it. That's getting the obstruction.
Listen,
you clean the engine. Now it's time to run.
You have to move
Clean
in,
engine.
seize territory,
And
and move forward.
forward, right. We clean the engine. Did we do that already? I think
And
that,
then
Dr. Ramos talk
when you
about
move in,
some. I think they still have in New York City. They still have the same old guard still here. So I don't know what. Nobody rushing to change those things anyway. They have enough because they're so overwhelmed already. They overwhelmed too early. Because I don't know, like they run out of gas. I don't know what the hell they're running out of gas. They have to be on the ball 24 hours. I mean, they were. I mean, in the beginning, they were like the first 2 months after, or 3 months, and that was like the slowing down. I don't know if they're slowing down or what the hell, but they're making blunders. It seems as though they're making blunders. And again, I know they're not making blunders. They're really doing the correct thing. But you're dealing, look, again, put your finger up to the wind, see where the wind is blowing, and then act accordingly. Don't jump and do vike.
and,
You
and
got to
that
have a
and
good
that
strategy
and
and a plan.
that's correct, and that is where a strategic team that is independent of government
Advise the
comes in.
government. Yeah.
Yes, and that is where the people who are looking from the outside with all contemporary scientific and business practice will sit down, look at what the government is doing as a whole. What they are doing is they're managing the government via cabinet, and they're having a cabinet meeting, right? Certain people are making decisions, like the last time they were in People's Partnership, where they're depending on a cabinet meeting, and then they're going through an agenda, right, where certain items are popping up, and then they're outing fires. But what they're not doing is that they're not having an independent UNC institutional team, a UNC party, because they put everybody from the party in that cabinet and in that government. Some of them not involved in the cabinet. So what it is that the party is the government. So then how could the party advise the government on what is the best way to go, looking at the election coming up in 2030? You see, so that is where they are failing, and that is where they failed as the People's Partnership. So that when you are supposed to do the retrospective analysis after they lost twice, this is what would have come up. This is what we said after we did the analysis when we lost the election, right? When the People's Party lost the first time.
Yeah.
And we said to the party, these are some of the things that caused you to lose. You first of all, you started disowning your own people during the power. You had a lot of pompous people walking around as ministers, and they started to diss their own people. They started to put PNM people in power. They had a PNM Minister of National Security. He was a PNM permanent secretary for years. He was my boss for a good few months, and he was acting like a UNC for years. Right? They have done that now. They brought in a few people who were PNM. They have a minister who's a PNM. He was PNM up to a few weeks before he became. So the thing about it is that you start showing your own people some wrong signals. Then you don't have a party because your party is government. So you have now to go. Maybe they should call on elections quickly and put people in a party in UNC party, and then start mobilizing your party groups again. Now you're in government, you could do even better. And then sit down and have a marginal constituency plan. Go back now, although you're in government, don't take it for granted. Don't take the PNM for granted. Go back now in your marginal seats, get back your party groups, strengthen your party groups, put resources, start mobilizing, and start planning the election for 2030. Oh God.
Mm-hmm. Oh God, yes. That's all we could say.
Yeah.
I hope they
No,
get any message. I hope they get any message because I'm not in this thing for 5 years, and that is why I'm talking about the things I'm saying. I want to win 15 years at least. So if it's for 5 years, count me out.
Well, I want
Gary, you
55.
can count me out now.
I want
If I
55.
follow
You know, I want
Gary, count
50.
me
I'm
out.
55.
yeah, but they have to have a strategy how you're going to achieve it. And that's the simple thing like a think tank from the outside. You know, when you're outside, Gary, like yourself, myself, Ken, and so on, you see things differently. You could see rather than when you're inside, you're very, very myopic when you're thinking and strategies and so on. But when you're from the outside, you look at things more objectively. You can see the flaws. We can use our personal experience living away overseas especially like what Dr. Rambo was saying, enterprise risk management.
You guys,
What about business
continue. I'll
processes?
join you back in about 10 minutes, all right? Just continue
Yeah.
talking. I'll join you back in 10 minutes.
What about the business processes that have to be taking place to reform certain sectors to make it more efficient? These things have to be done, but no one is going to do these things for fear. Exactly what happened to Dr. Rambo. They will think you're maverick or something. We're not going to win you a contract, and don't try to rock the boat here. And this is what is going to happen this time around. I'm afraid. I'm really not afraid, but scared really that 5 years is 5 years.
Yeah.
So, Samad,
yeah, right.
Samad, and Dr. Ramrup made a good point there, and he touched on the marginal constituencies.
Yes.
You can fix roads and deliver, address flooding and stuff, but if you don't identify the deficiencies that the people were clamoring about when the PNM was there, who failed to deliver, right? If we don't identify those deficiencies in those specific marginals and try to implement, right, through our deliverables, then it is a lost case.
Yes.
Because the people will say, hey, you guys came in here and didn't bother to do anything or fix anything. It's the same old, right? That is why Dr. Ramrup made a very good point. You need a strategic team to advise on this, a team focused on those marginals that could now call up a meeting and say, hey, what are the deliverables here? What are the deficiencies here that the people have been clamoring about that the PNM failed to deliver? We are going to fix this. And we're going to highlight that, showcase that, and going to win over these marginals, right?
But Ken, exactly what you're saying, we said it. I mean, I personally said it the very first week after this past election. The exact things. We have to go and say, how did we win the marginal seats? What techniques, procedures, strategy was used? Then how can we string them? Because, listen, when you're not in power, you can't do anything.
And so meant you remember, before Ramrup said that I was talking about, I called Ken and maybe he didn't hear me. When I was saying that I talked about the marginals and I was saying Ken, I was calling his name. I was saying Ken was to always talk about the marginals. Maybe he nodded away at that time or whatever. But I was mentioning your name, Ken, when I talked about the marginals.
Probably I took all those out there.
Yeah, I thought so. So and Dr. Ramrup was responding to what I was saying before, because I was sitting on the making a lot of noise. I would call it noise with Gary about Gary want to shoot straight. I don't want to shoot at all. I want to keep my gun broken. I don't want to have it in the shooting position because I have an election to win 5 years time, 4 years time. I have to know what I'm doing. I'm thinking about 5 years. That is why I'm asking Dr. Ramrup to temper it down. Because all these are great things. It could be done in maybe 10 years. But see that first 5 years? Don't make too much changes. They wouldn't take it. They're grumbling. Especially since you said you'll do better than the PNM. The PNM did so little that it's easy for you to win over. Just do a little bit at a time. Because the PNM did nothing. And therefore, if you do a little bit at a time, you'll get there. All these great things and all these nice pictures that the Minister of Works brought in the other day and showed us that all these pretty looking, glassy looking buildings, all that is fine, but that has a place in history.
Doc, all those things are AI generated, by the way.
Right.
I don't even know that, but
yeah,
you can go on and say, hello AI, I know you are skilled in developing infrastructure works and so on. Can you devise for me? Look at the Trinidad and Tobago development plan and devise for me a development strategy, infrastructure development strategy for me over the next 5 years. And you get that. Shoot out
a 3D or 4D. A 3D or 4D.
Yeah. And then you add some of your frills to it up to this date. Up to this date, how long did they come up with that plan? November or October? Have you heard it? Did they say anything when can you tell me when any of these plans are going to be implemented? They have
But she
have they
said,
done
no, no.
RFPs? Have they
So,
done
but
request for
yeah, you
proposal?
remember what I said the other day when I was talking about, I was criticizing it the same way. And I said the only reason why I don't want to go full length in my criticism, because she says the tendering has already started. So that tells me that things, that's what she said, that things are in motion. Therefore, if you look at tendering, therefore you're started, the process is already being implemented, because that's the only reason why you're tendering. So
But
when she
I
said
mean,
that, I backed down. I mean, that was my original thing, but she said tenders are already out. Therefore,
tendering.
they're inviting Chinese and whoever, and the people from Middle East and whoever coming in. They might be able to get some competitors to do it for them,
But Doc,
but at a reasonable
generally,
price.
our process requires this to be gazetted, and all these requests for proposal have to be published in the newspaper, in some fora, so we can see, the public can see these things, as it will also either government to government contract. In that case, it's not, don't have to tender and so on. So where's the transparency? I have not seen any request for proposal, any of the newspaper or any media.
Maybe they're not doing anything. Maybe they're not doing. We
or
presume that they're not doing anything.
or they're still doing something called e-tendering, which is a relatively new process. E-tendering but you still need to alert or advise the public that, hey,
But she said so. I mean, I believe her, because that
Yes.
cannot lie like that at all. I mean, not lie. You can't exaggerate. You can't exaggerate like that.
Well, who says so? Didn't she say she's not going to raise any taxes and so on? 8 months after you see come 1st of January, you see what's happening. All fines are doubled, more or less. So, hey, you go back on towards, I don't mind that. But the thing is, transparency says a lot of things, and you have to be transparent.
Just a clarification. The fines are considered taxes?
No way. This is not a tax. The press is doing this thing, this mischief. This is not a tax. Hey,
that is why we have to debunk that in the press, for the press.
That's right, but who is debunking this? Who is the PR or communications team in the UNC debunking anything? Who is going to, 7 o'clock on the TV and say, hey, look, you know what? If you're abiding by the law, you don't have to pay these fines.
Exactly. It's a simple thing.
I have no problem with the fines, but it should be done on a phase basis, like the most urgent ones. For example, if you're driving a car without insurance and you bunks me, I have nothing to get from you. I cannot sue you. I can only sue you in a civil case. Take 10 years to call. What happens? So that's a serious thing. And once you could show that to the public, hey, look, somebody driving a car without insurance and they bunks your car, you have nothing to get. So in this case, I'm implementing this by the end of the month. Right, like that. So you show the urgency and why, the rationale why you're doing these things. I give you the example. I drive in my car down South Key, my brake slider on, the water get into the system, and electrical things are. How many people come outside and check their brake slide? If you live in alone, what happens? You nobody's mashing the brakes, so how can you see if the damn thing is working or not? So you get a citation, within 48 hours they fix it, and you go to a police station and they sign off that yes, this thing, your ticket has been fixed, and so on. So these are the...
What about this? You live in Trinidad, you sometimes. Did you hear that the vehicle, the SDS, the EV, the electronic, they don't have any spare tires? Is that really so?
Yeah, that's true.
So I understand you have a law in Trinidad where they charge you when you don't have a spare tire. Is that really so?
Well, then they have to revise that.
That is the case, yeah. And I understand if you get a punct in the highway and you do have a jack ticket charge for that as well.
That's right. So if the car, before the dealer sell the car, he should make it sure you have these things, because you had to be roadworthy. It must not violate any of the rules. So before that car hit the road, The seller must make it sure you have all these things.
Yeah, but Doc, you're hitting a hard point there because even the tint in the vehicle they were selling as valid, and the police were charging you when you buy a new car with a tint on. Their valid tint, they were saying,
Right.
"Oh, it's above the limit." So how the heck the dealer is selling the car with the wrong tint?
No, the buyer must say, I'm not buying that car because that have a tint and they will get a ticket for it. I don't want it.
Yeah, but
I don't
there should
understand
But if the country had lapsed to the past 10 years to maintain that certain culture, and maybe before that, you see the thing about it, that we have to use caution and how we go forward.
yes,
I mean,
yes,
things
yes,
are,
Right.
yes,
I mean,
yes,
Gary making my point for me now.
yes,
That's the
no,
Gary.
no,
point
no,
I'm making all
with
along.
that kind of stuff I'm talking about. I
Yes,
mean, your
yes,
point, it has to be with what category we're talking about, right?
Yes,
So, for instance,
yeah, yeah. You talk about we talk about the PNM would not charge them because they allow a level of slackness in society. And if you try to tighten up, they're going to be the bad one. So the
yeah,
PNM know how to play the damn
not
game
the
and they
matter
win
of
in
the
the year after
tightening up
year.
in the dock. The tightening up is not the issue here that I'm talking about. Is the exorbitant level of fines that they want to institute there. I mean, enforcement I support, but not the fines to where the level it is there right now. So I mean, we have to put out like we're going to be doing certain things, and we address first of all we have to address the things that puts the vehicle in a position where the vehicle is not road safety, right? It's not road safe,
insurance
right?
is the
Yeah.
first thing, and that's
Yeah,
what
all
I'm
right.
saying.
So there are certain things that might cause the vehicle to cause an accident or to damage somebody. You have to enforce those things.
Right.
The little tint and the fancy light and thing you have to. I mean, you could handle these things differently,
Yeah, give them
But
a three
the
months to
fine.
give them a
Gary,
3 months to
point.
rectify that. Give
Yeah.
them a 3 months to rectify that.
Yeah. But
But the
Go ahead, Ken. Go
important
ahead.
thing,
yeah, Samad also, and Gary, a point also, we also have to address these arrogant officers who, come out there
Yeah,
and they
I was.
just don't care,
Go ahead. I was about to make
and
that point, but go
they
ahead.
just
Make
want
it.
to share tickets, and they
hmm
see you as what you are, and they say, hey, you know what? Your bricks like this, that, this have a dent there, this tint, and and just write you $10,000 in fines, right?
And people cannot barely buy food right now. But
Correct.
our
So
government went into office with giving the impression that we are concerned about the people.
people-centered development, man. People-centered development.
so if you have officers there that are rogue, just want to share $10,000 in fines, that is going to piss off a lot of people all over the place.
Including your support base, your supporters as
Well,
And
well.
look,
it's not
politics is
just the
in
PM; it's
trying.
our support base. It's everybody in the country is upset about it. I mean,
Yep.
you know how many calls I'm getting? You know how many
But
people say they're done and walking away from me and all kind of thing?
Gary, you think that could be deliberate as well? Deliberately done to bad.
I feel somebody misguided our government and going to another direction,
Mm.
and we need to fix that quick. And that's what I said. So now the draconian things we need to do is to uproot those that are affiliated with the PNM that's been there. So we need to get them out of the way because we have a lot of UNC people highly qualified and waiting, right? So certain things has to be done drastically, and certain things has to
Yes,
do
correct,
proceed with caution. So when Dr.
correct.
Maras say proceed with caution, it depends on what he's referring to. We need
Yeah.
UNC people in place with immediate effect to represent our cause. The other
Yes.
things how we would do I mean it's also case by case and what you're dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Definitely agreed.
Because if they were given if the law just came out from January the 1st or whatever date it was, and then 1 week after they had a roadblock and they start ticketing people everywhere, that will make the government look bad.
And then the
No,
fine, Dr. Maras, the level of the fine, the exorbitant amount of money, totally ridiculous,
no.
totally unacceptable.
If they're having a roadblock, that roadblock is a very, very rare thing to do. That is only for looking for a criminal or big shooting happen and all of that. But if you have a roadblock to give time, somebody is trying to make the government look bad. And I would like to know whether the minister was consulted before they do those roadblocks. If
That's a good
not,
point, Dr. Maraj.
somebody have to answer. Somebody down the chain have to answer, and they should be reprimanded and demoted. If they are sergeant, they should be put to a corporal. Whatever trial they should have, but that you cannot upset the whole society just like that. The PNM wouldn't make joke with that at all. They would
No.
send them.
Yeah,
They would send
Dr.
them to
Maraj?
Grenada. They wouldn't
Yeah,
make
and
joke with that.
yeah,
So, and let
and
me
Dr.
just
Maraj?
answer something
Go ahead.
Ken asked a while ago. He was, and I said it the last time myself, so I want to repeat that same thing he said. Is this discretionary or is it mandatory? It's not a mandatory tax, sure, because it's upon your discretion. But here's the thing. You could exercise, so you all gave the example just now. You could exercise the best discretion you have. You didn't look in the back to see whether your tail light is lighting, and you drive away. Suddenly you get to say, I didn't look this morning. I got to look every day to see. So what I'm saying is that in the end, how much money did they collect from that new fines? Yes, it is not unintentional, it is discretionary, but in the law of averages, tell us that this amount of money came in by way of fines of the new fine, and therefore it is a tax in that regards. So that is how people are looking at it. The people are saying, yeah, we know it's not an intentional tax, but in the end, you'll be collecting 20 million from whom? From us, the people, from us, the UNC and the PNM and whoever.
Yeah. But you know, Dr. Maraj, when you made a good point there, when you lock down a whole country and you do a roadblock and you lock down the whole country with the roadblock, right?
Right.
It make it look like you're in a revenue hunt there. And you
Right.
start sharing
That's
tickets to
right.
everyone for a tail light and this and a tint and that.
That's right.
It looking like
That's
that
right.
is a revenue hunt, and that'll make the government look bad.
That is why the
Right?
commissioner,
But
if
that
he
would
did
take
it, he
center
should
stage
be,
and center focus that is a revenue
yeah.
hunt. Right?
So somebody has to pay for that. Is the
So
commissioner make that
you made
order,
a
the
good point.
superintendent, whoever?
Whoever
Somebody had to pay for that.
made that call,
That is why
right?
Gary should come in now. Gary should
Correct.
clean house. Clean house. That's how to clean house. Because that thing making the government look bad is they must be weeded out immediately.
It is a
And
strategy
Alexander
that the
sitting there. Alexander sitting there only laughing and smiling. This is no time to laugh. That's not his bodies. Those people are his bodies. You won't come down hard. Alexander had to be
because
removed. He cannot deal with his people.
I had a lot of friends complain about during rush hours,
Last
right?
week,
They
last week,
locking
yeah,
down the
I do.
country to do roadblocks to give tickets and all licensing
That's a
officers
very
and
rare thing. That shouldn't
right?
happen.
You should never do that in the middle of rush hours, peak
And
hours.
Gary,
You,
I
you,
mean,
at a major
can
intersection,
people miss
right? They're
their
sharing
flights
tickets.
and people miss their flights and so on,
Somebody has
boy.
to pay for that. Somebody
Yeah.
has to pay for that.
So
Alexander
I
had to
totally
ask
disagree with that.
report. Alexander had to say who's responsible for that and what is he doing about it.
He should be informed before that is before
Of
that
course,
transpires
let
or
him
is
say that
authorized. He should get the final say.
he must have given them the okay.
The police commissioner operates independent of the Minister of National Security, so he would
I
not do
hope
that.
so.
Well,
But he's
he's
still
costing the country
responsible.
a lot in revenue because there's a lot of productive time there,
No,
Yeah.
right?
So
no,
them
what
could
I
take
he
it.
what
In fact, we
right.
have seen people, senior officers in the police force that take it upon themselves to make decisions without consulting the commissioner of police. So we have seen all kind of crazy things.
Yeah, but
And that
Right?
is rogue.
in
That's
this
why
case,
And
I
that
mean,
could be
somebody has
interpreted
TPS is
as
something we had to fix.
somebody have to be called before the tribunal. You cannot allow this to get away like that. Somebody has
correct.
to go before the commissioner to answer questions. Who got on whose authority did they do so and so?
Yeah,
And
but
what gave them the right
that is
and why
something
didn't you?
different. What I'm
If
talking about is the level of the ticket fine. That is something unacceptable.
so
The
if
police
it's
thing
no
is a
no you
different thing.
cannot. We already laid the groundwork out. What is the problem here? The problem is that you have this doubling of the fines, and the next day you have a traffic jam. You call it a roadblock. Who make that indiscretionate decision has to account. If the minister didn't make it, then who made it? Okay, the commissioner of police, he must be disciplined as well for doing such a thing. Because you cannot make me miss my flight and nobody will pay for it. Somebody has to pay for it. If I miss my flight, somebody has to pay for it. Who's responsible? The police who had the roadblock. Why did the police come doing it on his own? Or somebody sent him? Whoever it was. We can't be like the PNM and behaving. These things has to be taken care of. We cannot
Well,
allow this to happen. This is a
the
bad thing.
PNM still running the police force, you know. They're running a lot of things. So we
That is
can
why
take
we're
care of
asking them to look into it. That is why we're asking the whatever level it is, they have to. I know why this woman prime minister so quiet. She has to get out there and make noise. I think she can't take the heat in. She can't take the heat. That is why somebody said tonight she missing in action. I know you all said out here, you all talk about missing in action. She's missing forever.
No,
If she
she's not
missing
missing in
forever, that'll be
action.
a problem.
She's not missing in action.
She's
She's
too
fully
missing too
engaged.
often.
She's
She got
fully
to get out
engaged.
there. She had to make noise. She had to, unless she learn from Trump. She could learn a few things from Trump.
You have to rumble, man, rumble.
Yeah, learn it from my enemy. Learn from
Guys,
my
I don't
enemies.
know. I don't know if you all saw, but like I used to pay $45 for my restaurant license, which is up in next month, and I now have to pay $9,000.
God, see,
That is 100% increase. You know, like
that is punishment. This is not good. This is bad news for the.
rental contracts, right?
Yeah.
The natural justice in law is that you don't raise something by 100%. You have like a 5%, 10% phased increase, you know. But you went and raised my license fees now from $4,500 to $9,000 one shot. Then now I have to also pay the $2,500 for the rent very soon coming up, and the rental of all the persons who are renting my property. So, and then of course liquor prices going up. So I don't have much people again in my restaurant. They're not buying a beer for $15 again. So we're gonna have some problems, you know, guys. With me, I could probably shut down my restaurant, but 9,000 is 100% increase. I find as it's too exorbitant, you know, not now. It should have been phased in, you know, like maybe 10%, 10%, 10%.
That's what I keep on saying. It's a phased approach. You don't
What ministry that would fall under, Doc?
licensing.
That I think that comes under the Attorney General. Huh? I think
yeah.
licensing committees are under the Attorney
All
General.
right.
I think.
Okay. All right.
Remember what we talked about? Fellas who was PNM just a few weeks before.
Yeah.
So you went up the cost of the liquor, you put out that 50% on the liquor, and also put out on the restaurant. So the cost, the proprietor would sell less, and the license went up. So you hit him, you shoot him on both sides. You shoot him in left, right, and center.
Correct.
This is not good for these people. They would not last 5 years if they go on like this.
All those rum shops in our communities like Naparima, Siparia, a lot of them will have to shut down because restaurant licenses are what they go for. And that has gone up by 100%. So a lot of rum shops will have to shut down.
This is not good. This is bad news. I don't know why that. You know, if they had to pay civil servants to borrow the damn money, they could borrow in the local market. That will generate welfare. That will generate more GDP. You got to grow your economy. You want to stop the devaluation? Grow your economy. Grow your GDP 10% a year. You don't have to devalue anymore. If your GDP is low, you have to devalue. You can't have it both ways. To grow your GDP by running this 10% to civil servant, and then the other day I told you the suppliers must have line up so that they have when they get the 10%, you have to in the shelf to sell. Because you don't have goods to sell, they'll jack the price up. All these costs they are doing, they'll pass it on to the consumer. Well, if you see next year, you see your inflation rate is 6%. No, understand why? Because many things are going up. Right now, things are still under control in Trinidad. If this year goes out and they find inflation take on, and they couldn't do anything else what is happening, and the GDP is not rising, and they have a deflation, have inflation and falling GDP, they ask the goose cook. That will be the end of them. Because the UNC wouldn't go out to vote, the PN will go out. That will be, they did it already. Jack Warner wins Shogwana South on his own against the same UNC. The UNC fight Jack Warner in the stronghold, and Jack Warner win. So this UNC have a lot of damn work to do. I am mincing no words with them. I'm not hiding anything. If the Kamala has to spend 5 years, she better set herself in order so that somebody will take over for her, because I'm in this business for the long haul. So she better exit as soon as possible. Let's have a maternal election in 5 years' time. She go, somebody new, because she cannot handle this. I am pro Kamala 100%, but I want to win more than I want Kamala. I want to win the next election and the one after that. Otherwise, forget. Forget. I go down the island. I go live in Grenada or some other country. Guyana, maybe Guyana. This is not good. This is bad news. Get all your damn party branch running, like Dr. Ramroop said. Get all your party in order, and then get your ministries in order, and get your ministers in order, because you have no NATEX. All your NATEX, you have them in position. What the hell are they doing there? They have to have a party. Who will run the party? The PNM never did this, and I'm not saying the PNM right. But they always had their people they work in the party while the government is working, the party working together hand in hand, side by side. Let me tell you, Robinson did a wrong thing. But every month, Robinson used to come and report to the party. I used to go to those meetings. He would come and report to the party when we ask questions, and we'll tell him what we want, what we feel about it, and a whole dialogue, and sometimes we'll call on me to speak, and a whole give and take. Telling them what we would like as the party members, what we would like as citizens. We're on the ground, and he like to hear from us because he want to know what the people thinking on the ground. So if they're not doing that, you're in opposition, you have some meeting in government, you have no meeting. Something wrong with you all. You all only want to win 5 years. Look today, what happened? They went and they have nice family leave and everything. Who the hell is going to pay for that? Employers again, right? Employers have to pay for those things, or the government. Where the government will find all the money to pay for family leave and put it into leave and all kind of things. The trade union happy, and I agree, they're nice. I'm saying that if they circulate the money back in society, the GDP are going to rise. Borrow the money locally, let the GDP rise. You'll get more taxes that way too. What are you fidgeting around? What are you all fidgeting? Where's the minister? The minister of finance must come out and say, look how I'm articulating it. They must come out and articulate. They can articulate. None of them can. Asking the prime minister to take the hours, 7 hours, and the bandwaves, and announce, lay the gauntlet down. Tell people like it is. This is what is happening in the country. This is why we supported America against Venezuela. This is why we have it in Tobago. No hotspots. No, because I think Dr. Ramroop talked tonight about having some kind of young people working to monitor what is happening in social media. Social media running a lot of stuff, even more than what happening in the papers these days. Look one paper going on today. The next two are hanging by a branch. We don't know what the hell. Trinidad is in a bad state, and they expect magic. Because that is what they always do. They hand it to the UNC for the UNC to work magic. So the magic, they could bring it back up. They wanted Robinson to work magic. And so money doesn't come out as sown. And Robinson told her, when I shake the tree, no money fell. I shook a tree and no money didn't fall. The money you have to create money, you have to create wealth, you have to create value. All these things they're talking about, you all have to get it done. And you have to start by doing the correct thing. You have a party, like Dr. Ramroop said, and you have a party. You have to rely on your party to do the groundwork, because they will sell it to you more than anybody else can. The UNC doesn't have a good history. They have a bad history. We give them, look at the history, you'll see. A bad history. It's somebody I don't want to bet on because I'm going to lose my damn money. So I want to win. That's why I'm angry.
All right, gentlemen, we could continue tomorrow night if you want.
Yeah,
tomorrow night, because tomorrow night will be an important night, because you see, we can find out how the wind is blowing tomorrow night. We hope the brothers in Tobago do the correct thing, which I think they usually will. But I want them to do the real correct thing, which is returning back these people with the same majority they have.
All right, then.
Good night.
All right, guys. Good night. Have a good night. Good night, Doc. Good night, Dr. Mirage. Good night, Dr. Ramroop. Good night, Gary.
Okay, guys.
Right, tomorrow night, guys. Good night, everybody. Thank you for joining.
Bye.
Well, Michelle is a Carnival Insider, and I will join Michelle. Happy Carnival to everyone. Carnival Insider.